Tiawakina with Miigwech to Eagle River Singers. They will now proceed with the flag song. We will give Eagle River Singers a few seconds before the next song. They will proceed with the veteran song. Please take your time and start when you're ready. Tiawankina Eagle River Singers, I will now ask for the flags to be posted. We welcome you into the assembly room. You can take your place into the assembly room for the assembly. And in the meantime, while we are taking place, I will invite our knowledge keepers, Chuck Humes and Gwendolyn Point, to come up on the stage for the opening prayer. So I will invite Gwendolyn Point and Chuck Humes, our knowledge keepers, for the opening prayer.
Yes, thank you very much. I'm from the Yukon Territory. My name is Chuck Hume. Kotlex is my traditional name. And I think this is a very important gathering here, and I certainly welcome the chiefs, council, and all the delegates. I know it's been a trying month here, but we'll get through what we need to get through. I know my grandmother at one time, she was, we were hanging salmon in the fish rack outside, and my mom turned us over to my grandparents to teach us, because parents in those days had to go out and wrestle for food and live off the land. We lived off the land. And my grandmother said, well, my job, she says, I'm going to teach you kids the respect. I'm going to teach you how to live off the country. I'm going to teach you everything you know. And she stamped her, not stamped, but touched the ground with her feet 3 times. She says, you know, that's your mother here. That's the one who's going to feed you. That's the one who's going to look after you. And that's the one that's going to make you grow and be responsible. And she says in the end, that's the one who's going to take you back. So you look after your country. And I know we're having a hard time now, but we're still responsible. We're not owners of the country. We look after it. But anyways, those are words from my grandmother, but I will say the prayer, and I'll say it in my traditional language. Kunishish, Tajam Dandagarati, Shokathanagaku Chena, Itlagazino, Shoku Cheshu, Wa Junana Daku Garati, Shokathanagaku Chena, Wa Matteo Shu Shokuchena Wadajan Narajena Dun Manan Shokathan Kukantaje Shokuche Chu Dadango Wadajan Garati Wadajan Shu Danan Daku Shu Shokathan Gakuchena Shokathan Kukantaje Wadajunanashu Shoda Shokuchena Kunishish. Thank you, Kunishish. What I said in the language is the people that live in this country will look after it while we're here. We'll look after your people while we're here. We'll treat your country like we treat ours. We look after our grandchildren while we're here doing business. We'll look after our grandchildren while they're at home going to school. And it's going to be a good day. It's going to be a good week. Thank you, Ashish.
Te Iatalatal, Chuck, and Te Iatalatal to our national chief, our regional chiefs, to all of you that are here, our leaders, and those online. Many ways to pray, and we're gifted with prayer. And I just ask that each and every one of you accept the blessings from the Creator today. To Squalawan, to have those good feelings, the special blessings on the work at hand, the IS, the good work. And I'd like to follow with my co-chair, Chuck, with song. And this song was given to our people when our people in the valley stood up, came together to work together. And we tell the young people especially, please don't take what you see for granted. Please don't take what we have for granted. For many, many have given their lives, and like our leaders here today, so that we have what we have today. So encourage all of you, Latama, Latsathala, Etamata, Etathala, Humtamata, Humtathala, Tashkolawan, having a good mind and a good heart, one mind, one heart, and a strong mind and strong heart. To Iatalatal. And elders told us, you're not alone. Don't do this work alone, but call in the Spirit, the Great Spirit, the Creator, to walk with us, guide us, hear us. To Iatalatal. Oh taltal hai chipsia.
Tiawankina, thank you to the knowledge keeper, the co-chair of the Knowledge Keepers Council. J'aimerais maintenant inviter le.
I would like now to invite the chief of the host nation for this assembly. It is the chief of the Kid Cantibi community, Guy White Duck.
Guy White Duck.
Miigwech. I'd like to thank the elders for the prayer and say Kwe Kekina to the chiefs, grand chiefs, and everyone present here. I speak on behalf of my nation. We occupied the Ottawa River Valley territory, and we have 9 communities in Western Quebec and 1 in Ontario. Pikwakakan in Ontario. We have Abitibi-Winnie, Temiskaming, Kabowet, Wolf Lake, Long Point, Kitsayakik, Lac Simon, Barrier Lake, and ourselves, Kitigan-Zibi. We're one of the closest one to the Ottawa Centre here. This is our traditional territory. We've never ceded this territory. We claim Aboriginal title to this land. We deal with a very difficult government in Quebec who does not recognize any rights outside the reserves, and the federal government doesn't step up to the plate to defend our interests, and it's a constant battle. So our community has chosen recently to launch a title case for sectors in the Ontario side and also in Quebec. We feel it's the only way we can pressure the governments in place to advance our cause. We know in British Columbia there's been successful on title, and so we've chosen to move ahead with title case on several key areas in the region here. We hope that will motivate governments to act properly with us. We really deplore Quebec's bad attitude towards First Nations. They recognize nothing outside the reserve. They give us lip service to our rights, and it's a constant battle. So we challenge Quebec to take the responsibility also. They are here on our land. It's thanks to the Algonquins and other nations who allowed them to be here once the French was defeated in this country. And now they talk about a referendum again to separate the country again. This is our territory. We own the land. They own nothing, but they claim everything. And it's up to us to stand together strongly, to challenge them and say, no way, we will not accept. You can pass any rules you want. The CAC is now looking at a constitution to deal with their jurisdiction and just shoving us aside like we're nobodies. Well, Quebec, we're here to stay. We're not going away. And this is our land. You can do anything on paper. The land remains belong to our people who have never ceded this territory. Miigwech. I wish you all a good meeting. I hope that you work in a constructive way. We all have a responsibility. It's not an easy time. Governments are doing things we don't agree with, but we're stuck to deal with it. We have to be pragmatic in our approach, in my view, and make sure that our people win out in the end. Miigwech.
For the welcome from the Ontario region, I would now like to invite the Ontario Regional Chief, Benedict.
Good morning to all of you. It's a great pleasure to join all of you this morning as we bring together our leadership, our executive, our national chief. I want to acknowledge the elders this morning, our knowledge keepers for the prayers, the ceremony this morning, the pipe ceremony, our Eagle staffs, our sacred items as we come together for the next 3 days, not only here in Assembly, but also together in our caucuses to deliberate, discuss so many important issues that impact our nations in so many different ways. I acknowledge all of our chiefs, our councils, our members, our citizens joining us here in Algonquin-Anishinaabeg territory. I want to say that the times have changed very quickly. We were just together not too long ago in September as we got together to deliberate the issues that impact us and talk about many of the challenges, but the uniqueness of all of our regions. As the Ontario Regional Chief, I help support 133 First Nations in Ontario. Ontario is a very unique, diverse region with so many nations that are challenged by the challenge that many of us face, but also exploring and taking advantage of the opportunities. We know that the political landscape around us is changing fast. We continue to see the governments of the province, the federal governments, looking how they secure that economy, how they secure the workforce. And we continue to push hard and ensure that the governments, the provincial governments, the Ontario government, the federal government, are well aware of the unique jurisdiction, the inherent sovereignty that all of our nations across Turtle Island, not only in Ontario, have, and a sacred responsibility that each and every one of us in this room have to the lands, our territory, and our resources, and our most valuable, our children and our families, and what that means to us, and how do we advance that. One of the priorities of mine as the Ontario Regional Chief is ensuring that we're supporting the assertion of nation building and the jurisdiction and sovereignty of all of our nations. All of our nations have the ability to make the determination of what development, what project development looks like in their territories, and we're here to support that. I know that over the next 3 days we'll talk a lot about that and what that means. And we're continuing to advance that in our region and so many other regions, and partnering with industry, other communities, other leaders, to ensure that the jurisdiction, the inherent rights of our people are protected. I know we talk about that a lot. We talk about program delivery and what that means to each one of our nations. One that's important and fundamentally important is that we're supporting all of our leadership out there to be able to do in accordance with their traditions, their customs, their ceremonies, of what program delivery and what inherent right, the assertion of sovereignty, what that looks like to every nation, and ensuring that we're supporting them. I can assure you that the National Chief and the Executive here are here to support each and every one of our regions. I know that there are issues around program delivery that we have differences on, but what's fundamentally important is that we continue to unite and respect the jurisdiction of each of our nations, but also our positions, and how do we navigate that. We see the governments of Ontario, the governments, the provinces, the federal government working to split us. And it's more important now that unity comes together to ensure, because there's one thing that I always remind developers, government, industry about, is that as construction projects happen, governments change, regulators change, operators change, financiers change. The only thing that will not change is you. The people on the land, the First Nations, the rights holders will continue to be there long after they have all gone. That's why it's extremely important that we educate and we defend our rights, because they will be all gone, and the only thing that will be left is our people, your people, and will be left. And we have to make sure it's not through devastation, but it's also about opportunity. What are those opportunities exist? For so long, our people have been oppressed in so many ways. The policies have never been beneficial to our people. And so as we navigate this very challenging time, I uplift all of our leadership in this room. Not too long ago, I was the chief of my community of Akwesasne, and I know how difficult it is to come here for 3 days, because what matters in community is what's happening on the ground each and every day. And I can assure you that not only our executive and national chief are well aware of that. The work that we do is making sure we're supporting you however we can. So on behalf of the 133 First Nations in our region, welcome to this territory. I look forward to the next 3 days of deliberations and the good work that we have to do in this wonderful nation that we call Turtle Island. Yamago.
Merci au chef régional Bénédicte.
Thank you, Regional Chief Benedict, Ontario Chief.
Ontario Regional Chief. Before we continue, the meeting is now called to order. And I will invite the National Chief, Cindy Woodhouse Nepinak, for the welcome.
Thank you. But before I begin, I want to take a moment to recognize my dear friend, our sister organization on the other side of the medicine line, I'll say. Our friend from Turtle Island, and we were talking this morning, and I said, we never created these borders, but Mark Macaro is here, our national chief from the other side. They call him president at the NCAI, and we're so thankful that you're here, that I had asked him to come sit up here. I said, we never had borders, and we have to work together, because Turtle Island belongs to First Nations people from coast to coast to coast, including on the other side of the medicine line. So please rise, and we'd like to honor you in a good way. So thank you for being here. Yeah. Trump and Canada will not divide our people anywhere, no matter where we are. So thank you. We let you in. Customs let him in, he said. But you'll hear from him later today, and I'm going to ask that our assembly welcome him and make relations with our relatives more strongly. I know we always have, but we have to continue to build on that and build our relations with our relatives to the south. Anin Buju, we acknowledge that we are here in the unceded territory of the Algonquin Nation. I want to acknowledge and I want to hold up our host drum, the Eagle River Singers, and thank Knowledge Keeper Chuck Hume and Dr. Gwen Point for opening this assembly in a good way. Chimigwech. We also recognize the Eagle staffs in the room and all the ceremonial items. And we acknowledge Chief Jean-Guy Whiteduck from Kitaganzi B. Anishinaabeg for welcoming us to his territory. We also lift up Regional Chiefs Abraham Benedict, Grand Chief Linda Basagay, and chiefs from across Ontario for your ongoing leadership and your inspiration. Chief Benedict, I want to thank you for your wisdom and your advice at our national executive. We appreciate your leadership on water, on policing, and border, just to name a few, does it all. Your success as well, Chief Fiddler, in securing a Canada-Ontario agreement on long-term reform of the First Nations child welfare system is so inspiring to many of us. Looking back over the past year, it has been also an honor to stand with you and with all the Ontario chiefs at Queen's Park in June against Bill 5. As chiefs were battling at Queen's Park for our rights, many were also fighting wildfires at home. So we lift up the chiefs in Ontario and chiefs across the nation for stepping up this past summer and being on the front lines of fires. We're also thinking of the Ontario chiefs. I want to take a moment to recognize the late Chief Lorraine Kobanez. She was a dear friend for many of us in this room, a highly respected chief. She never stopped fighting for the rights and the health of the Nisatsuan Anishinaabe Nation in Treaty 3 territory. So we honor her. We were honored to attend her service last month in her community and to pay respects to her family. When we see so many women chiefs, getting elected across this country, we can't think of legendary, we think of legendary matriarchs like Chief Kobanez. So in her name today, please join me in lifting up all the women chiefs, and it's so great to see, so give them a round of applause. Thank you. Thank you. I think I heard Chief Linda Basagay out there somewhere, but we lift her up in a good way as well. Talking about Ontario chiefs, we also want to recognize the extraordinary efforts that the Northern Ontario First Nations to rescue a Norwegian tourist that went missing in the north this past summer, and the decency and their courage received international attention. It was all over the world. So we lift up the Anishinaabe Oski Nation and Fort Severn First Nation community members that participated in the search. And of course, we also lift up the Manitoba chiefs in the north unfortunately they had to locate his body on Hayes River. Together, though, those communities demonstrated that First Nations can be counted on during difficult times. And First Nations have always been there for this country, for Canada, during difficult times. And we see our veterans here today. We lift you up in a good way. Right from the creation of this country, from the War of 1812, 2 world wars, 2 Quebec referendums that try to split this country apart, Afghanistan, the pandemic, and now it's another one of those times. To the south, Canada is under threat from Trump, but we have allies. The President of the National Congress of American Indians is here with us today, so I'm really thankful, as we just alluded earlier, that Mark is also the chairman of the Pechanga Band. Is that, I say that correctly?
It's close.
Pechanga Band, yeah, in the United States, and so I'm so glad that you're here with us this week. While Trump threatens Canada from the south, threats of separation are also fueled by Alberta and Quebec politicians in the east and in the west. And all around us, climate change threatens our communities and our quality of life. In response, First Nations are leading the way. We are standing up for the environment to protect all Canadians, not just First Nations. Alberta and Quebec chiefs have been the most vocal opponents of provincial separatists. And First Nations have always stood shoulder to shoulder with Canadians against Trump's illegal tariffs. So we understand it's a critical and uncertain time in this country's history, because Canada is at a crossroads in its relationship with First Nations. Our rights are being threatened in new ways, but we are not afraid. Far from it. First Nations across this country are stronger than we have ever been. We have had to overcome great odds to protect our rights, our laws, our resources, and our waters. Our ancestors have fought on this land to protect our rights as peoples and as nations. When Parliament, our provincial legislatures, have dishonored the Crown, we have fought in the colonial courts and we've won over and over again. Sadly, First Nations continue to be forced to keep fighting in court, and rightfully, we have kept winning. Nothing has been given to us and we are not going back. So I can't think of a better place to discuss the future of this country than at this Special Chiefs Assembly this week. I want to thank, of course, our AFN staff all over this room for bringing this together and putting this assembly together for each of us. We thank the media, record number that are here, and everyone streaming online across Canada for being with us. We have a lot to get to this week and many resolutions to discuss. The Prime Minister will also be here later today at 4 o'clock, I believe, to take your questions. Numerous federal ministers and members of Parliament from all political parties have been invited to attend this week, and we lift them up for their public service. These are not easy jobs, folks. They require sacrifice, they require time away from your family, something that our chiefs and our leaders in this room understand. So we thank them for attending today. A lot has happened since when we last gathered in September on Treaty 1 territory in Winnipeg. One thing to highlight before we start relates to the historic $23 billion settlement that we negotiated with Prime Minister Trudeau in 2023 on discrimination in the First Nations Child and Family Services Program and Jordan's Principle. In July, we announced approximately 4,000 claims have been received since we opened the application portal in March. And shortly after, we confirmed that the first payments had started to roll. So today we're announcing that over 88,000 claims are in, and more than $265 million has been distributed to claimants. We want to again thank our representative plaintiffs for their leadership. They inspire us each and every day to keep making sure this rollout keeps moving in a good way. This is a significant achievement, but we know that thousands more First Nations people are still eligible in these first 2 classes. And while no amount of money can ever make up for the harms, that this compensation, it's an important acknowledgement of the discrimination that they suffered. So please join me in thanking them and the Settlement Implementation Committee. We are grateful for your leadership. Thank you so very much. Many of them are in this room. Since September's assembly, we have been going nonstop, starting with the federal budget. The Finance Minister, for I think AFN's first time in history, will be here later this week on Thursday to answer questions. November's budget was the new government's first chance to build back some of the trust that was lost after the major projects Bill C-5 was rammed through Parliament in 20 days without consultation. Last month's budget was also an opportunity to demonstrate through deeds that First Nations voices matter to this new administration. I wish I was here to say that we accomplished that mission. Sadly, the 2025 federal budget represents a significant setback. To be fair, we do recognize some investments for housing. We welcome measures to expand the capacity of the First Nations Finance Authority, and we were pleased to confirm that the $47.8 billion we negotiated last year for long-term reform of the First Nations child and family child welfare system has been protected. And so we lift up Minister Galmasti for her support on these priorities and her leadership in protecting Indigenous services from a 15% cut. We fought hard for that, but it should not have been so difficult. When the best that we can say is that Indigenous services is only being cut by $2 to $3 billion, we know that there's a problem, especially when provincial transfers for health, for education, and social services have gone up by 5%. Sadly, instead of closing the gap between First Nations and Canadians, this budget makes things more difficult. November's budget was introduced on the first anniversary of the passing of one of our leaders, Justice Murray Sinclair. So I want to personally recognize his son, Nigan, for our recent discussion 2 weeks ago about his dad's teachings, and we lift up his families, his daughters. He's got strong daughters, and we feel his spirit here today. As a commissioner of the Truth and Reconciliation Commission investigating residential schools, Justice Sinclair famously said, "Education got us into this mess, and education will get us out." More than half of the Commission's calls to action were focused on education. To mark the 10th anniversary of the Commission's final report this month, December, we call on Canada to make generational budget investments in First Nations education, training, and languages, because Canada talked a lot about generational investments in the lead up to the budget. We agreed and suggest that the most effective way to secure the future success of First Nations children and our economy is to invest in education, because Canada's education system was used as a tool to try to erase our culture, take our language, and break our spirit. For the next generation, education must be a tool that empowers First Nations youth and uplifts our children. First Nations are the youngest demographic in this country, but half of our schools are overcrowded. 50% of First Nations' actual education needs remain unfunded. So what generational investments were included in the budget for First Nations education? That silence you hear sounded like Canada's response. Education is one example. Closing the discriminatory First Nations infrastructure gap is another. First Nations policing, the First Nations Procurement Authority, states of emergency that chiefs called all over the country were all ignored in this budget. Yet the government still says, "Trust us." Canada's promise to introduce First Nations clean water legislation this year is another example. And I lift up many people in this room that worked really hard on that. During the election, the government promised to reintroduce a clean water bill as quickly as possible if they were elected. So this week, we join with chiefs from coast to coast in calling on this government to honor their commitment and reintroduce the First Nations Clean Water Act this month. There is still time. Besides that, the federal budget and the Clean Water Act, policing and justice issues have been a key focus since September's assembly. From program funding cuts and bail reform to hate crime legislation and the Indian Act, we have worked to make sure that First Nations voices are heard in Parliament on these important issues. And so we lift up the chiefs who have made presentations to members of Parliament and senators this fall. The centre of this work is the important policy resolutions chiefs co-develop and vote on here in this room. With the calls for justice and the AFN justice strategy that we released in June, many of the chiefs' resolutions promote positive change to our justice system. This means revitalizing First Nations laws and legal systems. It means reforming the Canadian criminal justice system, and it means prioritizing First Nations policing as an essential service in this country, just like it is everywhere else. So we join the chiefs in calling on the government to also introduce the First Nations policing legislation in this session of Parliament. As part of my duties over the summer, we were invited to visit prisoners at the Stony Mountain Penitentiary. And it was really difficult, but I'm glad that we went because we need to see how our people are treated there. The incarceration rates are so overwhelming, and we will be visiting a women's institution soon. But it was really tough to visit that jail. And I went right into Max, and everybody was scared that I was going into Max. And I said, I'm going to go and sit with our men that have been, you know, through the systems that be, the oppression that's put upon them. And being in there I spent the day with them. I took them donuts because I would have took KFC chicken had I known, and I'm going to do that again. But my heart was with them, and I was going cell to cell, and the guards were freaked that I would go in. I said, those are our people. And sadly, I looked around. It was unfortunately most of our people. You know, and some of them, you know, they have to do their time, but at the same time, the inhumane treatment that I'd seen was hurtful. And knowing that in previous governments, one of the prime ministers from the past, you know, just took things away from them, basic things like air conditioner, so that they could swelter in heat all summer. These are the conditions that, you know, our people are facing being incarcerated. So I left from there, it was really heavy, and I'm thankful to Creator above because he sent a couple of elders that invited me over, and they were able to pray with me. They didn't know that I was having a hard day that day after that. But, you know, remember that and keep them in prayer this holiday season. You know, I know that they have a lot to learn as well, but those are our people. In addition to the justice reform, we have called on Canada to finally end the Indian Act's discriminatory second-generation cutoff, to move away from the dehumanizing categories of 6-1s and 6-2s, and end the Crown's ability to determine who is an Indian. Our people are entitled to belong to our people, and they are entitled to rights according to First Nation laws. First Nations must be in control of our own membership. We know who our ancestors are. Justice for First Nations in 2025 means doing something about hate and violence as well, directed towards our people. Because the more successful First Nations become in this country, the more that we assert our rights, the more hate rises against us, especially for our women. In 2023, after 152 years of Manitoba being a province, yes, we elected our premier, who was First Nation, but we also elected at that same time 2 First Nations women, and I'm very proud of them. They were elected and, of course, appointed as cabinet ministers, and it was a historic moment. And we lift up Nahani Fontaine and Bernadette Smith. We're proud of you. But recently, they have both of their constituency offices have been firebombed. These are just 2 examples. Vandalism and this kind of violence against First Nations is just not acceptable. So we look forward to First Nations testifying in Parliament over the coming months on proposed hate crime legislation. It's got to stop, including towards residential school survivors. Justice, of course, for First Nations in 2025 also means the return of our artifacts from the Vatican. This week, we will provide an update on the next important steps to repatriate our relatives. As some of them will be returning in the coming days, our thoughts are with the elders, with the residential school survivors, and the leaders that have prayed and worked so hard to bring them home. Chiefs in this assembly, you directed through resolution to repatriate and work on our artifacts, and we've worked on that really hard this year, and they'll be coming home this Saturday. So we promise to honor their work. We promise to keep up the pressure to bring back the artifacts, and we will not rest until all return home. The Vatican's just one piece. There's many more out there around the world. And justice for First Nations in 2025 also means that Canada and the provinces actually live up to their obligation to respect our fundamental rights under the Charter and the United Nations Declaration. This has been in the news a lot with a recent announcement about big resource projects. On the weekend, we saw a national report on the Alberta-Canada MOU state categorically that the mantra of free, prior and informed consent from Indigenous communities is gone, as if First Nations rights can be wiped away with one federal-provincial MOU. It was difficult to watch BC and many First Nations excluded from these discussions, particularly on the Pacific Coast. So we lift up all chiefs impacted for their passion and for their leadership, regardless of their position. Chiefs, of course, have different views on development, and this is to be celebrated. I told the press that this morning, not feared or used against us as a wedge to try and divide us. The truth is that Canada can create all the MOUs, project offices, advisory groups that they want, but Chiefs are united. When it comes to approving large national projects on First Nations lands, there will not be getting around rights holders. That's another reason outstanding First Nations treaty rights must be reconciled before others, because Métis rights do not include rights over First Nations lands, territories, and resources. First Nations, with the exception of the Inuit, are the only true landowners of these traditional territories. We have governed these lands. We have governed these lands since time immemorial, prior to colonial borders. Our rights cannot be implemented and respected without us in substance and in process, and they cannot be respected after the fact. When Canada and the provinces tried to exclude First Nations from repatriating the Constitution in the early 1980s, we fought to ensure Section 35 was included to affirm our treaty and pre-existing inherent rights. Then First Nations were told that Section 35 was simply an empty box, that any rights we thought we have must be negotiated again through agreements. So again, we fought in Canada's court system and proved them wrong. There are now hundreds of court decisions affirming the strength of our constitutional rights. We raise this critical history because Canada, the province, and proponents developing these major projects must take First Nations rights seriously. Everyone should know by now that there is no cutting corners when it comes to protecting human health, vital watersheds, and the constitutional rights of First Nations people. Our ancestors have inhabited these protected territories long before colonial borders. First Nations lands hold vast deposits of critical minerals, forests, and fresh water supplies that sustain communities on both sides of the medicine line. With each day, more Canadians recognize that Canada's economy will not achieve its full potential until we have a strong First Nation economy. First Nations businesses already contribute over $50 billion each year to Canada's GDP. This represents a 50% increase over the previous decade. The rest of Canada only grew by 37% during the same period. Canada's gross domestic product is generated off lands, of First Nations lands and resources. Over $600 billion of projects are forecast to be launched on our traditional lands over the next decade. The potential benefits are in the trillions of dollars, but they won't advance without First Nation support. Until an appropriate development process is established and founded in free, prior, and informed consent, the Crown's constitutional legal obligations will not be met. This is the law, and it can't be wished away. So, Chiefs, we have a lot of work to do. The late Justice Murray Sinclair called on us to get up and do the work of reconciliation. He described the mountain to all of us and showed us all the path to reach the top. But Justice Sinclair also said it was up to us to climb that mountain. When he talked about us, he was not just referring only to our people. He was inviting all Canadians to do the climbing together. And that long climb rests with all of us now, everyone in this room, every parliamentarian that's here listening, every province that's also listening, and every Canadian. So no matter how much federal and provincial governments try to ignore and avoid First Nation rights, we must come back tomorrow and keep doing the work for our people. That is why we called for a First Ministers meeting on First Nations issues early in the new year. A reset is required in 2026 if we want to keep this country united. Premiers agreed it was time for a meeting with First Nations when we met in July, and now the ball is in Canada's court. In Justice Sinclair's name, we must keep imagining a world where all of us have medicines, food, equal access to education, and a safe place to live. Not just a few, but truly all of us. Justice Sinclair prepared us to speak about this dream many times to many different people, but most will doubt this is even possible. He told us to keep trying, keep dreaming, because we have been given the gift to do that. We have a lot of ground to cover, and we have a short time to do it. Chiefs, you work unbelievably hard, and you put yourselves on the line each day to help your communities, to help your families. As National Chief, it is my honor to be here, standing with you, to advance your priorities, and through it all, we will be here with you together, just as our elders and our ancestors wanted us to work together. By strengthening our relations united, we can do anything that we want. So I stand with you and thank you. Chimigwech, apachikachinim.
Chimigwech, merci.
Thank you to National Chief Woodhouse Nepinak
For the opening remarks. I will now introduce myself officially to you. Ndio aweti askenonia yes when that Andy yanariskwa iwaisiukuta yokwasianenda yeyatsi. Bonjour tout le monde, mon nom.
Hello everyone, my name is Véronique Picard. I'm from Wendake, and it's a great privilege for me to be co-president of this meeting with Cédric.
And I have the great honor to be the co-chair, one of the 3 co-chairs for this assembly with my colleagues Cédric and Adam. And with that said, I will turn over the microphone to my colleague Cédric.
Good morning. Bon matin. So again, as mentioned by Véronique, my name is Cédric Gray-Lehoux. I'm Mi'kmaq from the community of Listigurge, and I am very proud to be here among our elected leaderships, our Two-Spirit, our women, our youth, our veterans and our knowledge keepers, as well as our regional chiefs and national chief, as one of the co-chairs for this assembly. Before we get into the business of resolutions, and again, we have heard you, so there's a lot more time for resolutions in this agenda, which we will be presenting shortly. I do want to go over some of the key points on this assembly's processes. The first one is that this is a hybrid assembly. So I want to recognize our delegates who are online. If you see us looking down, that's who we're looking at. We will be using the regular system that we have, so microphone 1, 2, and then going towards our Zoom participants to make sure that we do get representativity in all of our discussions. For our participants on Zoom, there are also AFN staff in that Zoom room that are there to make sure that your title, your First Nations, and as well as your name is well indicated so that we can ensure who we have with us today. And again, finally, for our Zoom participants, if ever you do want to speak and address the Assembly, you must use the raise hand function. That's the only way we have. So anything that's said in the chat, we do not have access to. You must use the raise hand function. As a reminder, you heard me speak a bit of French earlier this morning, so did Véronique. We have simultaneous translation in the back. We have one of the booths. You can go there to get simultaneous translation equipment, or if you have good eyes, we also do have access to the written language on our screens. I want to take the time also to highlight some changes that have been made since last assembly. It's only been a few months, but we did hear some of the comments and look towards improving the accessibility and also the way that chiefs can have their voices heard. First one is that we do now have a resolutions kiosk. We have a resolutions table here, but there's also someone outside that is there to help maybe orientate you, make you understand better, get documents to you, or send you in the right direction if you do have a question. So there's the resolutions kiosk outside, right near registration, that is there to help, as well as I said, our table here. We've also updated our voting style. So we'll be using the same platform, the same process, which I will go over in a few minutes. However, when we get to baskets or theme-based discussions, we used to have one vote for all the resolutions within these baskets, right? And some chiefs said there might be a better way to do this. So our platform was updated to allow for you to vote on individual resolutions within a basket. Our discussion process, our decision process, which will mostly be added during this assembly, will still allow that space for discussion on each. And then rather than voting on the whole, you as chiefs will have the opportunity to vote on every single one individually. This does mean that it's a new way to do it, but you'll see it's quite simple. Rather than just having one resolution open in your voting platform, you will have 2, 3, however many there is, and you will take the time to vote on one, confirm your vote, go down, vote on the second, confirm your vote, etc., etc., etc. This, again, just to make sure that the voices of chiefs are heard on individual topics, knowing that sometimes baskets could create situations where chiefs were displeased with one or maybe would like to abstain from a specific one. Now you will have that opportunity. As we get into the electronic voting, before we go to the agenda and the rules and procedures, let's talk about the online voting platform. So everyone will need one of these, a tablet, a computer, an electronic device to make sure that you do have access to the internet. I believe registration was supposed to give you the Wi-Fi password for our delegates in the front. The way it's going to work is when we as co-chairs call on the opening of a vote, our technicians will send out an email. So you will receive an email from AFN Voting, I believe. AFN Meetings. You will receive an email from AFN Meetings saying the vote is now open on draft resolution XYZ. And within this email, you will have a 6-letter and number code. This is unique to you as a chief or proxy delegate. When you click on Go to Voting or the voting link, you will be asked to enter this number at the first time in the day. So as we do the test vote, we'll give ourselves time to get this going. But once you have signed in that first time, you will be able to just return to that page to vote for the next resolutions without having to enter your code. Every time a resolution or a vote is opened, you will receive that email. You can just open the old page or click on the link in the email. You will have access to the voting platform this way. If ever there are issues, and there might be some, certainly the first one during our test vote, we'll have our distribution team here. They will have bright green lanyards. They're really hard to miss, walking around to help. And if ever during the day you do have issues, and I would ask our technicians if they could put up the helpline slide, please, on the screen for our participants. There is an email you can write to, or you can head over to the distribution table to get that information. Thank you, technicians. So again, you receive your email, you enter your password, it is unique to you. When we call for something to be opened, a vote, you will have draft resolution, you click on it, the name of the resolution will be there, and you will have 3 options: for, against, or abstention. You select one, you click submit vote, and you have to click submit vote, and a pop-up will appear. Are you sure you want to vote for, against, or abstention? You say, yes, I confirm. And once that happens, your vote is encrypted in the platform's database, and you will no longer be able to vote a second time. It is 1 vote per chief or proxy representative. So again, make sure that when they ask you, are you sure you're for, against, or abstain, that you really do validate that you chose the right one. I believe we can now go towards our test vote. So I would look towards our technicians to open the test vote and have our distribution team maybe walk around the room. You should be receiving in the next few moments, again, an email from AFN Meetings with a voting link and your 6-number or letter password. And if I could also ask our technicians to put our test, the first of our tests, up on the screen, please. So like I said, we have the option now to vote on multiple votes at the same time. So you should be receiving within the test basket 2 different questions. The first one should be, pineapple should be a part of all pizza. I think you're getting used to this, and I want to see if it's changed since September. And the second one, which is going to be within the same basket, will be hamburgers should always come with onion rings. Again, this is just a way to show you that you have access to both votes within one basket, and you can vote on each of them individually. The vote is now open. You should have received your emails. We'll give you a few moments to sign in, and again, we shouldn't have to do this in the next times, but just making sure that your unique identifier is used. And we have our team walking around here. If ever you're having any issues, you can raise your hand. We do have staff walking around. And for our Zoom participants, just a reminder that you do have the AFN staff that is there with you, so if you want, you can reach out to them on the chat. We as chairs will not see it, but the AFN staff will be there and available for you. If ever anyone is having any issues, again, please raise your hand. I see that many have already signed in. So you have, within one basket, you should see 2 resolutions that are open. Pineapple on pizza and hamburgers and onion rings. You vote on each of them individually. So you must go, let's say, to our first one, test basket. Pineapple should be part of all pizza toppings. You select it, for, against, or abstain. Submit vote, confirm your vote, and making sure it's the right one. And you'll have a button that says return to resolutions list, or voting list, I believe. So you click on that, it'll bring you back to the voting. You select your second one, and again, you vote a second time. I'll look around the room to see if we have anyone with their hands up. We have someone here on the right, if one of our team can go about halfway through. And once we get through this first one, the next ones will go much smoother. If our technicians can update, thank you. And again, all those who have been registered and signed in are those who should receive a link. And this applies also for those on Zoom, so you will be receiving the same kind of link even if you're on Zoom or here within the Assembly Hall. We'll give it another 15, 20 seconds. And again, ask if anyone's having any issues, just raise your hand. You have 2 resolutions to vote on at the same time. Final few seconds. If ever you're having any issues during the day, again, you can raise your hand or you can head to the distribution table where our team will be able to assist you. I'd ask our technicians to refresh one final time and we'll see where we're at. Seeing a disparity between the numbers. So again, you vote on both platforms. This is just a test vote. So I will ask that the voting platform be closed, that the vote be closed, and again, this will close both of the votes at the same time. So how we're going to proceed is once the votes are closed, for a resolution to pass, it takes 60% for. Abstentions are not counted within the 60% as is defined in the rules and procedure. So I would ask our technicians to show us the results for the first vote. Pineapple should be part of all pizza toppings. We have, again, you see a total of 145 that used the test, and that gives us 67%. So the Assembly is officially for pineapple on pizza. We would then ask to have our second results posted. So hamburgers should always come with onion rings. And again, we have our total vote, a little less enthusiasm for the hamburgers, but we have 60.5%. So again, the Assembly is officially for onion rings with hamburgers. Test vote's good. We will now move towards our adoption of rules and procedures. A few of the rules, and if we can have the motion put up on the screen, please. A few of highlights, so these rules are the same as our September Assembly. Quorum is established in the morning at the call to order and requires 50 plus 1% of chiefs present at the Assembly, and this does include our Zoom platform. We will be giving about 4 minutes to everyone, and due to a heavy agenda and trying to create that space, as co-chairs, we will be keeping the 4-minute timer pretty tight. It was increased from 3 minutes to 4, so we will be trying to respect that time as much as possible. We'll be giving you warnings, and we do have the power to close the mics. Let's not get there. None of us want that. We'll also be looking towards giving that space to our mover and seconder to open us up on the discussion if they so desire. If we can have our motion for the adoption of the rules of procedure put up on the screen. I don't know if we have one specifically. And also if we can have the rules and procedure vote opened for our chiefs and proxy delegates. Or before we do that, okay, so we don't have slides. I'd be looking towards a mover for the adoption of the rules and procedures. Do we have a mover for the rules and procedures? We need one to continue with the assembly. We have a hand raised. Chief Munoz as our mover. And do we have a seconder for, we have Chief in the back. Your name, please. Or I see someone at microphone number 1, maybe. Microphone number 1, would you like to move or second the motion to adopt the rules of procedure? Chief John Paul, thank you. So we have our mover and seconder. If we could open the vote, and again, the motion is to adopt the rules of procedures for the AFN Special Chiefs Assembly held December 2 to 4th in Ottawa, Ontario. You should be receiving in the next few minutes or seconds. It is sent. So the notification should have been sent. We are voting now. Voting is open on the adoption of rules and procedure for the AFN Special Chiefs Assembly. We'll give it a few moments, and again, that email, that same link that you received, or just refreshing your page will give you access to this vote. It is called Motion 1, Rules to Adopt the December 2025 Special Chiefs Assembly Rules of Procedure. And again, these are the same rules that were there for our September election, or assembly. If anyone is having any issues, please do raise your hand. We still have our team walking around. We have 2 hands raised on this left-hand side for our distribution team. One here right in the front and one farther back. For our Zoom participants, again, you do have the AFN staff with you in that room. They should be identified if ever there are any issues. And again, you can raise your hand. We have our technicians walking around. We'll give it another few seconds. I see our technicians are working with our final hand that was raised. We'll give it another, there's a hand raised in the back too. Thank you to our team. I'll give it a final 10 seconds just to say. And again, this is motion 1 to adopt the December 2025 Special Chiefs Assembly Rules of Procedure. I'll look towards our technicians for a final. And just as a heads up also, if you're wondering about the votes that you did participate in, you'll have the option near the top of the page for the closed and open. So anything that's closed is resolutions that we went through, that we voted on, and you'll see the votes that are there, again, registered to your name. Looking towards our distribution team. We're good? All right, so I'd call on our team to please close the vote. And if you can have the results put up on screen, please. So, for motion 1 to adopt the December 2025 Special Chiefs Assembly Rules of Procedure, including electronic voting, we have 100 in support, 100%, so thank you. That motion is carried. We will now move on towards the adoption of our draft agenda, and I would ask our technical team to please have the agenda put up on screen so that we can go through it before going towards our vote. So we have 3 days of assembly. The first one, Tuesday, December 2nd, where this morning there was a pipe ceremony. Registration was opened. The Circle of Trade is also open since 9 o'clock. We had our opening ceremony. Our national chief addressed us, and now we are within the adoption of rules of procedure and adoption of the agenda. Once we get through this, we will then be going into resolutions before lunch, continuing with resolutions after lunch. And as mentioned by National Chief this morning, President Macaro will have the time to address us at around 2:50, again trying to create that space for resolutions. We'll be going into a quite lengthy wellness break, which will give you guys time to get into your caucuses and also visit the Circle of Trade, after which we have at 4 o'clock the Right Honourable Mark Carney, Prime Minister of Canada, who will be joining us. On day 2, we will also be having our pipe ceremony at 7. Registration will still be open. The Circle of Trade will be open. And again, we will start with resolutions. There will be an honoring for Elijah Harper at 10:30, a plenary session on Bill S2, and we have quite a few presenters on that. We will be going to lunch break, coming back with resolutions, and then various discussions on funding and financing, including the First Nations Bank of Canada and the First Nations infrastructure financing by the FNFA. If we can keep scrolling down. We'll have the Major Projects Office as well as a plenary session on the National Chiefs Children Commission, which will be presenting with Dr. Cindy Blackstock at the end of Wednesday. And we will be going into our final day on Thursday. Pipe ceremony, registration, Circle of Trade, back into resolutions, and as mentioned by National Chief, quite a few ministers will be joining us. So there'll be 2 different panels for the rest of the morning until we get, if we do have time, into more resolutions. So if we can keep scrolling down, please. And again, this is the most up-to-date agenda that was posted last evening to the AFN website and your packages. And finally, for the end of the assembly, we will be going towards a long block of resolutions before going towards our closing ceremony, after which there is the Winter Gala also. So the next motion on the floor would be that the First Nations in Assembly move to adopt the agenda for the AFN Special Chiefs Assembly held December 2 to 4, 2025 in Ottawa, Ontario. I would need a mover for the motion to adopt. Microphone number 1, please.
Mary T.G. Gray, Takla Nation Chief Proxy. I would move the agenda with certain amendments to the agenda.
Thank you. We will come back towards modifications. I would need a seconder for, I have microphone number 2.
Chief Kelsey Jacko, Cold Lake First Nation, and I would second it with Mary's motion.
Perfect. Thank you very much. So we have mover Mary TG and seconder Kelsey Jacko, and we will now go towards discussion. So I would look towards microphone number 1 for Mary TG.
Good morning, everybody. Good morning, beautiful people. I would like to remind everybody in the hall that everything we say, everything we write, everything that we agree upon is going down as history in the history of our people. And those children not yet born will read of that history. And you have to ask yourself, what side of history do I want to be on? Do I want to be on the side of history that puts our children as our most important resource? If that is the case, this agenda is not indicative of the import that we place on our children. A half an hour at the end of the day on Wednesday to have a report out by the National Children's Chiefs Commission and Dr. Cindy Blackstock does not give our children the dignity and the time that they deserve. We are talking about history making here. The tribunal has ordered that a national plan for long-term reform be completed by December 22nd. That is 20 days from now, good people. What is more important or time sensitive on this agenda? I have to say personally, I was very upset to see the agenda for this Special Chiefs Assembly, assuming, as I think any person here in this room would think, that we would have as priority our children, because the agreement that will be brought forward is to end discrimination against our children and make sure it never happens again. And a half an hour to present to you, good people, is not enough. So with that, I will also let you know, when Carney's coming on, when Gulmasty's coming on, that Canada has taken our children back to court again, that there is a judicial review again on CHRT 80. That order, the tribunal order, has put the Canadian Human Rights Tribunal orders to end discrimination and make sure it never happens again as permanent injunction. It sets out guidelines as to how the remedies have to unfold. It sets out guidelines about how culture is important. It talks about regional variations. There is nothing that Canada should contest, because everything that is in CHRT 80 are orders that we've already won. So do not think this government is your friend. Do not think the Minister of Indigenous Services Canada is your friend when they are taking our children to court. Let's talk about that today. Let's talk about how our nations are calling for states of emergency because Jordan Principles claims are being denied. Special needs assistance in schools are getting cut. Lunch programs are getting cut. And we sit here, and we're going to sit here and listen to everything else, but that is not time sensitive. So I am going to ask that we either put another hour, for heaven's sakes, I got to ask for an hour, for the wellness break. There's a 3 to 4 wellness break. I don't think we need an hour to grab a coffee. So we either make an amendment there, or do we want to listen to an hour of, let me see, the board president of the First Nations Bank of Canada, is that Perry Bellegarde, and the financial piece, is that time sensitive? What is time sensitive here? 20 days to get this plan. And I know the good people in this room agree with me that our children deserve more time. Because if not, what are we doing here?
Thank you, Mary. So again, the proposed change would be, and I believe this wellness break, the 1-hour wellness break, is required for procedures, let's call it that. But there was the suggestion then that the Wednesday issue, and again, this is your assembly, your agenda, which would be at 3 o'clock to about 4 o'clock, I believe, were the two that were mentioned. could maybe be replaced by the plenary session from the NCCC and Dr. Cindy Blackstock. So again, this would be the proposed change to replace the 3 o'clock and 3:30 presentations with that of the NCCC. Since it is our mover, I would look towards our seconder for these proposed changes. Can I have microphone number 2, please? Microphone number 2, please.
Yes, Kelsey Jacko, Cold Lake First Nations. I support the amendment. Canada and its representatives have been given 8 times the amount of time as the commissioners in order to report back to. We keep trying, but the conversation is longer than a half hour. You deserve time to ask questions. You know, there's backlogs of Jordan's principal, 140,000. You know, have a lot of talk on my Facebook chat, you know, and I'm getting blamed for this, and I don't think it's fair. You know, we're trying to come up with a plan. Canada's doing their own plan. I'm not too sure how it looks like, but I think we deserve more time, because at the Assembly, we had resolutions to do this work, so we need more time. Merci.
Thank you, Jacko. So, again, it's been accepted by a mover and seconder to replace the 3 o'clock First Nations Bank of Canada and the 3:30 plenary session of First Nations infrastructure financing with the originally at 4:30 plenary session national long-term reform of First Nations Child and Family Services and Jordan's Principle. So when we will be voting on the agenda, we will be voting on this as amended agenda. I will look towards the Assembly if there is further discussion that is needed, and also looking towards our Zoom. As a quick reminder, you do need to use the raise hand function. That is the only way we as co-chairs will see if you do wish to address the Assembly. I'm hearing question and seeing no one come to the microphones. Looking one final time on Zoom. So we will please open the votes that the First Nations and Assembly move to adopt the agenda for the AFN Special Chiefs Assembly held December 2nd to 4th, 2025 in Ottawa, Ontario, as amended, which again includes from 3 to 4 o'clock the NCCC and Dr. Cindy Blackstock. So I would look towards our technicians to please open the vote to adopt the agenda as amended. The notifications should be sent now. And again, the notifications should be sent to everyone. You have the same link, or you refresh your page. And we will be working with the team to see if we're going to place those at a further time, those that were moved. I have one hand up in the back, if our technicians can please. If you are having any issues on the Zoom, you can use the chat to talk with our AFN staff, or if you're here in the room, we have someone in the back with their hand raised. And throughout the day, if you're having any issues, again, just a reminder that we do have our distribution team, bright green lanyards for most, that are there to help, and also at the table, they will be available during the day. Seeing quite a few votes come in, so we'll give it another 15 seconds just to make sure. If there are any final issues, raise your hand. Seeing no further raised hands, I would ask that the vote please be closed and the results posted on the boards for our chiefs and proxy delegates. Again, this was the motion to adopt. As amended, the First Nations and Assembly moved to adopt the agenda for the AFN Special Chiefs Assembly held December 2 to 4th, 2025 in Ottawa, Ontario, as amended. and we have 141 for. So again, 97.9%. This motion is carried. As per the agenda, we will now be moving into the resolutions process, and I will turn it over to my co-chair, Adam.
Miigwech Cedric, Ewagenin Guajiminawa, Magakanaga Bijaik, Bojog Dinawa, Genin Ben Magananakum, Miigwech Gagimategewat, Nogum Gagjiba, Gagpachnamwach, Egominak Jihag, Gagjibayamyawat, Miugenin Ejbak Senamian, Mando Jawendangwen, Mawachi Don, Egwach Tui Munsegwe, we got doesn't jigik. Ego Nada Jigabonjan has Nameben do dem Negozagening Donji. So I just wanted to introduce myself in our language and acknowledge the drum and the elders that opened with prayer this morning. And it is my hope as well that we have a very good 3 days. We have very good discussions. Just a reminder, we are getting into resolutions, and just again a reminder that as we go through making decisions, as we go through having our discussions, we do recognize we do have different opinions, we have different views, and it's important to express those views as we come together to make decisions. But most importantly, we have the code of conduct that acknowledges respect, that we respect each other, that we speak in a good way, that we respect our colleagues that are here, our fellow chiefs and proxy representatives, and everyone that is here in the room, but also joining the Assembly here in Ottawa this week, but also joining virtually. And as part of that, we do have, it's really nice to have our knowledge keepers here to help preside over the Assembly, just to keep us in line as co-chairs of the Assembly, and to bring back the fact that our discussions, that we must have it in a good way. First and foremost, we do have the rules of procedure. First and foremost, I am reminded that we have the Eagle staffs that are present here that were brought in through ceremony this morning, and that we keep that in mind as we have our discussions. Also, as we get into resolutions, just a reminder in the rules of procedure that you've adopted at every Assembly, I want to talk about the Resolutions Committee. And of course, there is a Resolutions Committee that is created, that is established before each Assembly. Part of their role is to ensure the draft resolutions that you bring forward satisfy all of the necessary requirements established in the AFN resolutions procedures, your procedures, before they are presented to the Assembly. So as part of the rules of procedure, we do have some guidelines, or sorry, some rules that the Resolutions Committee has to follow. I'm not going to go through all of them. They are in the conference booklet that you have available to you. But just a reminder, several things that the Resolutions Committee is responsible to do. They have an obligation, basically review any resolutions that you bring forward to make sure they're consistent with and within the powers set out in the Charter, your Charter. Also, to make sure that any resolutions are not in conflict with past resolutions, or they clearly state that there is a conflict and that it seeks a new mandate or a modified mandate or direction. Also, one of their roles is to review resolutions to make sure that a resolution can be reasonably implemented by the AFN, including taking into consideration any financial implications. So there is quite a role that the resolutions team has. Again, resolutions are brought forward by yourselves. This is your Assembly. I know, chiefs and proxy representatives, you've traveled from across the country. It's not easy to get here to Ottawa, but you make that effort and you bring forward resolutions that you'd like to bring to the Assembly. Again, these are your resolutions. We want to make sure it's done properly. Having said that, we do have the resolutions team, and I'd like to acknowledge the hard work that they put into preparing and reviewing your resolutions at every Assembly. And it's challenging work, but the team works really hard and as part of that hard work, that is essential to, and an integral part of the decisions that are being made at each and every assembly. So with that, I'd like to acknowledge the resolutions team who are here to my left, to your right, at the resolutions table. If I can ask you to stand, please. And let's give them, stand please. Let's give them a warm welcome. And miigwech for all your hard work and keeping us in line and making sure that we abide by the rules that have been put in place by chiefs and proxy representatives. So with that, we'll get right into resolutions. I know we're doing okay so far on the agenda. We'd like to keep on track. We need to be mindful and manage our time and our discussions in a respectful way. We'll get right into resolutions. Of course, the first resolution is draft emergency resolution number 1. Of course, under your rules, any emergency resolutions that meet the criteria have to be brought forward first. So we have draft emergency resolution number 1 that has been presented. Can I confirm, is that the copy that's being handed out? I see a paper being handed out. I believe that is the resolution. So the resolution is before you. We do have it up on the screen. Thank you, Encore. Draft resolution, emergency resolution number 1 is titled Affirming the Oil Tanker Moratorium Act and Supporting Coastal First Nations Rejection of any proposed pipeline from Alberta to BC's northwest coast. It is moved by Chief Donald Edgars. Can I confirm that Chief Edgars is in the room? Chief Edgars, can I confirm that you're, thank you. It is seconded by Merle Alexander, proxy Merle Alexander. Can I confirm that you are in the room? Thank you. If you can please stand by at the microphones, please. So I will get into the resolution. I will go down, Encore, if you can scroll down to therefore be it resolved, please. And the resolution reads, therefore be it resolved that the First Nations in Assembly, 1, affirm full support for the North Coast Protection Declaration, as well as the Coastal First Nations and any other affected First Nations strong rejection of any proposed pipeline running through BC's north, central, and south coast and other affected territories. 2, affirm support for the Oil Tanker Moratorium Act, OTMA, and firmly reject any exemptions to this moratorium proposed under Section 6.1 of the OTMA and through Schedule 2 of the Building Canada Act. 3, call on the Government of Canada, the Province of Alberta, and the Province of British Columbia to fully uphold the United Nations Declaration on the Rights of Indigenous Peoples as a legal threshold and set of minimum standards for any project deemed to be in the national interest in First Nation territories. 4, call for the immediate withdrawal of the Canada-Alberta Memorandum of Understanding and any project contemplated or designed under the agreement that may infringe First Nations rights, including the right to self-determination. 5, call on the Government of Canada to recognize the climate emergency and recommit to strengthen and fully implement its national and international climate obligations in full partnership with First Nations rights and title holders, including to ensure adequate, sustainable, and long-term funding for First Nations-led climate action. So that is the resolution. I'll open it up to the mover and the seconder if you wish to speak to the resolution. If we can have the timer running, we have up to 4 minutes. Microphone number 2, please.
Donald Edgars, Chief Councillor, Old Masset Village Council. Chiefs, elders, matriarchs, ladies held in high esteem, thank you for this opportunity. I speak as the mover in support of this emergency resolution that affirms the Oil Tanker Moratorium Act and the Coastal First Nations North Coast Protection Declaration. The Province of Alberta and the Government of Canada signed an MOU last week to advance pipeline projects west to BC's coast under the Building Canada Act. Chiefs, whether you support the pipeline or not, we can all agree that any government must seek our free and prior and informed consent before any proposed projects take place on our land and waters. This MOU provides no such assurances. The MOU enables the government to do business as usual, despite legal requirements to uphold the UN Declaration. This MOU sets us back decades, not just the recklessness language that undermines all First Nations rights, but we have all been down this road before. I take us back to former Enbridge pipeline, which sought to ram through our territories without our consent. Make no mistake, First Nations in BC stood in unity then, and we stand together now. The pipeline going to BC's coast is nothing but a pipe dream. The Oil Tanker Moratorium Act is vital legislation as a result of over 50-year moratorium that is a result of recognized BC North and Central Coast are some of the most dangerous waters in the world. An oil spill in the area is not an if, it is when. We cannot let this happen. The ramifications of a spill would not only be fatal from coast to coast, but would also be felt for generations. These are decisions that will affect our children, our grandchildren, and our great-grandchildren. Chiefs, I ask you for your unanimous support to support this emergency resolution. I ask that we stand unified against any government that makes agreements behind closed doors without us. I call on all chiefs to reject this dangerous precedence. I ask the chiefs to stand in support of coastal First Nations who firmly reject any pipelines that propose running through our territories. I ask us to stand firmly and united
10 seconds.
Ahead of Prime Minister Mark Carney's remarks to the Assembly this afternoon. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, mover of the resolution. We'll now open it up. Seconder, if you wish to speak, it's not required, but if you wish to speak to the resolution at microphone number 1. Again, not required. Microphone 1, please.
Good morning. Good morning, chiefs and proxies. Merle Alexander. I am from Kitasoo Hekes First Nation, but I hold the proxy for Haitsik First Nation from the mid-central coast. Obviously stand in complete support of this resolution. I think, as my colleague has said, the possibility of a catastrophic oil pipeline like burst would destroy the very livelihood of the Central Coast. I also think it's important to remember that Trudeau had a grand bargain of balance where he chose to approve the Trans Mountain pipeline, but then put in place the Oil Moratorium Act and rejected the Northern Gateway project. This MOU, if implemented, would completely reverse that balance, as well as amend a number of create exceptions for another 7 other environmental provisions, including cap and issues around cap emissions. So this is really a step backwards, and it obviously the possibilities of a catastrophic event would completely destroy and eliminate the very Aboriginal and treaty rights that are protected currently. So with that, I seek support of this resolution.
Thank you. Seconder to the resolution. So mover and seconder, I've been advised that there may have been consensus on an amendment or an addition to the resolution. I'm going to the mover. Is that correct? And if so, I have the text of it here. Just a nod. Yes, okay, thank you. So there is one more paragraph in the whereas clause in the preamble encore. Can I get you to scroll up to G in the whereas? So this would not be in the version that you have seen. This is an addition. So the addition is, if it's up on the screen, I know it's hard to read, I'll read it out for you, but it would be G. It would read, at the First Nations Major Project Summit hosted by the Government of Canada in July 2025, Prime Minister Carney stated that no project under the BCA would proceed without First Nations free, prior, and informed consent. Moreover, the House of Commons on Tuesday, November 25, 2025, Prime Minister Carney stated, quote, the MOU we are creating with Alberta creates necessary conditions but not sufficient conditions because we believe in cooperative federalism. We believe First Nations rights holders have to agree, end quote. So that's the addition. Mover, seconder, and seconder, where'd you go? You're okay with that? Okay, very good. At this point, I will open it up to the floor. The order that we will follow for questions is generally microphone 2, 1, and then online, and then back to 2, 1. So we'll go in a circle. Microphone number 1.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Good morning, everyone. I'm Chief Cheryl Casmer from the community of Akam, a member community to the Tanaka Nation in the province of British Columbia. I'd like to start off by acknowledging the Algonquin and Anishinaabe for hosting us for these important discussions over the next couple of days, as well as acknowledging our elders, Hume and Point, who provided us with a prayer. The language that was just read into the record, Mr. Chair, was language that we discussed at the BC caucus. So I'm appreciative that it's being included, and the reason being was that I think it's important that we use the words that are shared with us by these political representatives and use it back to them and hold them accountable for when they say these things. And the Prime Minister had said on numerous occasions, aside from the 2 that are referenced in the language, but has said that no major project will move forward without the free, prior, informed consent of First Nations who will be impacted by those projects. And so I think it's important that this language be reflected in this resolution to hold government accountable. Thank you.
Miigwech, thank you. Nobody online that I can tell, so I'm just going to double check. Microphone number 1.
Hello, John Jack, Chief Councillor for the Glayet First Nations on Vancouver Island. I had a suggestion of another amendment, so I'm wondering if I need to wait for this one to pass, or...
to do is we'll get a member of the resolutions team to come and approach you. If you have the text of the proposed amendment, if you can give it to them. We've got it? Okay. So go ahead with your proposed amendment.
Thank you. So I'd like to propose that in the therefore be it resolved sections under section 1, so if you go all the way to the term strong rejection of any proposed pipeline, I'd like to add between proposed and pipeline, oil and bitumen, just to be specific to what I think was discussed at the North Coast Protection Declaration discussions, because I think it's more than just oil. Bitumen pipeline would be just as bad, would it not? So that's all I would like to add, just for clarity. Thank you.
Thank you. So the proposed amendment is an addition of oil and bitumen. So it is up on the screen. So it would say strong rejection of any proposed oil and bitumen pipeline. Mover, are you okay with that? Mover? Yes. Seconder? Very good. Thank you. Floor is open, but it sounds like there is consent. to proceed. Oh, microphone number 2, and if anybody else wishes to speak, I will call for a vote very shortly. If you're going to approach the mic now. Microphone 2.
Sego Soaguego, Grand Chief Cody Daibo at Mohawk Council of Kahnawake. I was talking with the mover here, just in terms of a question. I notice a lot of these are sort of affirming the support and all that for the Canadian-facing, we'll say, legislation or whatnot. I had just proposed that maybe there should be another therefore be it about either affirming or support the First Nation laws that govern their territory and that those hold paramountcy over everything. So whatever the First Nation decides, that's what the law of the land should be. So.
Great, Miigwech. So what I'm going to propose is we do have a member of the resolutions team, I believe, nearby. If you can give them your proposed text, and we will have that read into the record, and I will ask the mover and seconder if they concur. I don't see anybody else approaching after that proposed amendment, and I'm just checking online. Nobody online as well. After that, we will then call for question. While we're doing that, so again, we have the new electronic voting that helps expedite the process, helps, it's actually quite an efficient process. But in the rules that you've given us to follow, we have an obligation, a requirement to seek out consensus, and that's always our hope, that we seek out consensus. In the rules, there is a point where I will ask if there's any opposition to any motion or resolution before you. If there is no opposition, at that point, the chairs can declare that the resolution has been carried by consensus. So I will be doing that before every vote. If it is carried by consensus, and there is no need for an electronic vote. Again, I'm looking to the team right now with a proposed amendment, and I believe they're just working on it. And I'm looking to the Grand Chief who proposed the amendment, and I can't see you. I know you were up there. The lights are bright. Oh, there you are. Okay. So the team has the proposed wording. You gave it to them? Or they're working on it? Okay, if you can stand by, please. Do we have anything yet? So I believe we are going to be, therefore be resolved, I believe it would be number 6. So Encore, if you can scroll down to number 6, and the proposed text is not yet up on the screen. So we'll just give it another minute or so. Grand Chief, actually, if you can come over to the team here, just so they can consult with you, just to make sure we have the correct text of the proposed amendment. While we're waiting, just to be aware, after this resolution, we will then be going to draft resolution number 1. So we'll deal with draft resolution number 1. Following that, we will then go to draft resolutions 23 and 24. That's the order in the next little while. Once we get to draft resolutions 23 and 24, we will go through this process where it's sort of a modified basket or a modified bundle of resolutions. We will bring forward the 2 resolutions, and then we will open up the electronic voting for both of them. So we'll give that a try. Again, it's the first time we're going to be doing that. But we, again, are trying to manage our time efficiently and looking constantly for more efficient ways of conducting business and also making our decisions. Being mindful that we have a lot of delegates, chiefs and proxy representatives in the room joining virtually. Okay, so up on the screen, we have number 6. It would read, affirm or support First Nations laws that govern their territories and hold paramountcy over colonial laws. Grand Chief, that's what you're looking for? Yes. Okay. I just want to confirm that. Mover, You're okay with that? Mover? Seconder, are you okay with it? Mover? Are you okay? All right, thank you. So the resolution as amended is before you. Before I go to an electronic vote, there may not be any need. Is there any opposition to the resolution before you? Is there any opposition? I'm looking online as well. Raise your hand if there is opposition. Last call. No opposition, so we will declare that this resolution has been accepted and approved by consensus. So thank you. We will now turn our attention to the next resolution, which is draft resolution number 1. So if I can have encore, please put up on the screen draft resolution number 1. And this is in your packages. Draft resolution number 1. Just waiting on our technical team to put it up on the screen. While we're doing that, I'll look for my version. There it is. Draft resolution number 1 is titled Calling on Canada to Criminalize Indian Residential School Denialism. It is moved by Chief David Muñoz, who I think I saw. Chief Muñoz? Oh, right here, thank you. Seconded by Chief Sheldon Kent. Chief Kent, are you in the room? I'm hearing that he's here. Can I confirm? Can I see Chief Kent? I know he was here. I saw him earlier. If he's not in the room or virtually, I will be looking for another seconder very shortly. Chief Sheldon Kent, are you in the room? If not, I am going to ask for another seconder. Is there a chief that is willing to second this resolution? Microphone number 1, please.
Chief Kelsey Jacko, I'll second that.
Thank you, Chief Jacko. So we will scroll down to therefore be it resolved. It reads, therefore be it resolved that the First Nations in Assembly 1 call upon the Government of Canada to introduce and adopt legislation to criminalize the public condoning, denial, justification, or minimization of the Indian Residential School IRS system and the unmarked graves of Indigenous children, recognizing such denialism as hate speech against Indigenous peoples. 2, direct the National Chief to immediately advocate with the Prime Minister, Minister of Justice, and Minister of Crown Indigenous Relations for the introduction or amendment of a government-sponsored bill, ensuring it is not left to private members' legislation. 3, direct the Assembly of First Nations, AFN, to work with survivors, elders, and First Nations leadership across the country through the AFN's advisory councils to ensure the drafting or amending of such legislation reflects lived experiences, provides clear legal definitions, and withstands constitutional challenges. 4, call on the Government of Canada to affirm that denialism is an attack on truth, healing, and reconciliation, and must be met with the same legal protections provided to Holocaust survivors and their families. So that is the resolution before you. It's not required, but if the mover and seconder wish to speak to it, you have up to 4 minutes. Chief Muñoz, on microphone number 1, please.
All right, thank you very much, Chief of the Nation, for permission, David Muñoz. I had a chance to speak at the university on residential school and unmarked graves and the impacts it does on our survivors, and the need to bring this to the attention, but also to, I wanted to get the unmarked graves to be more like crime scenes. And I was speaking on that, and there was an incident that happened at the university where another speaker was allowed to speak about the residential school that it never happened, and that denying that unmarked graves even existed, the 215 was false. And I thought that was really improper. Anyway, so Criminalizing residential school unmarked graves, denialism. That denialism is deliberate harm. Survivors and families and nations face intentional campaigns designed to erase the truth of residential schools and unmarked graves. Such actions re-traumatize survivors, fuel racism, and undermine truth-telling and healing. Education alone is not enough to stop organized denialism, because many of the provinces are doing that, and so is the government. Targeted conduct and not opinion. I was asked by a reporter yesterday, are you trying to stop people from expressing their opinions? No, I'm not trying to do that. I'm trying to stop accenting those opinions that are harmful to our people. Criminalizing focuses on intentional acts, not honest questions or academic debate. Includes knowingly denying residential schools existed, children died in schools, verified unmarked graves, forced assimilation and abuse, survivors' testimony. It also covers spreading conspiracy theories or content designed to incite hatred against Indigenous peoples. And this is not something that goes against the laws and our policies. This aligns with existing legal frameworks. Canada already criminalizes Holocaust denial and hate propaganda. If you say the Holocaust never happened, you could go to jail. I think there was in the news just recently somebody defamed the Holocaust memorial, and that they're going to be sentenced. Other countries have laws against genocide, distortions, and disinformation targeting protected groups. Residential school denialism fits the same category, denying Indigenous genocide and promoting hatred. Expanding hate propaganda laws to explicitly include Indigenous genocide is logical and necessary. Federal and provincial roles. Provincial can also do something about these. Federal government can criminalize denialism under the criminal code. Provinces can also act immediately within their jurisdiction by changing the human rights laws, civil penalties, public safety regulations, professional standards, anti-harassment rules, and these measures will stop denialism in public institutions, workplaces, and online spaces. So we call to action for the AFN to urge all governments to recognize denialism as hate propaganda and genocide distortion. Protect survivors, families, and nations from deliberate harm. Ensure the truth about the Indigenous genocide cannot be erased. Criminalizing intentional denialism safeguards justice, safety, and truth for future generations. Provincial response, we must ensure that they also step up to stop denialism. Thank you very much for listening to me. I hope you get your support.
Chief Muñoz. Just a reminder, there is the timer running. That's we know that you like to respect that. I'll give you a friendly 30-second notice, just in case you don't see the timer running. Chief Jacko, seconder. Go ahead.
Good day, Chief Jacko, Cold Lake First Nations. A year ago today, my colleagues and I brought a similar resolution to the Assembly. It passed almost in unity. The creator of this bill, Leah Getsen, has not given up and has reintroduced it to the Parliament after the federal election. I'm going to repeat my support for this bill now. In the Canadian parliamentary system, the bills presented by the representatives who are not part of the ruling party are often set aside on the docket to make room for discussion of government bills, but the government can choose to prioritize them if it wants it to. Public support and the support of other parties is therefore critical and important. We cannot afford to have this bill pushed aside. Denying the horrific events of the Holocaust is already considered a criminal offense in Canada. It is well known that Hitler modeled the concentration camps on the reserve and reservation systems created in North America. That Canada would provide specific consideration for a global people who have suffered at the hands of the government policies while refusing to do so for the peoples indigenous to these lands, whose existence and humanity have greatly suffered from Canadian governmental policies, would be additional emotional harm. I ask the Chief to support this resolution to make sure that the truth of Canada's history cannot be denied for political or personal gain, and that it cannot be buried through misrepresentation and lies. The truth must be told, so I'm hoping this bill gets passed in the Parliament. You know, our people have suffered and continue to suffer, so I hope everybody gives support to this bill. Masicho.
Thank you. I don't see any opposition. Looking around the room, I see people agreeing with the resolution before you, and I'm just going to check online as well. Nobody approaching to speak. So with that, microphone number 2.
Good morning, Chief Karen Bell, Kettigon ZB, Ontario. I'm just asking for a friendly amendment because when we're talking about this, we're talking about it as a crime. And so when I'm looking at number 1, it says, call upon the Government of Canada to introduce and adopt legislation to criminalize the public condoning, denial, justification, and minimization of the Indian residential school system and the unmarked graves of Indigenous children. And I'd like it to be shown as recognizing such denialism and equate it to a hate crime against Indigenous peoples. Miigwech.
I just want to confirm that you've given that to the resolutions team right behind you, and it looks like you have. So if I can have the amendment up on the screen, please, as well on the screen that I'm looking at. So the proposed amendment would be highlighted in a different color, and we're just working to get the actual text of that proposed amendment. So we're just working on that proposed amendment, which would now be a change or an addition to TBR 1. While we're doing that, I'll go to microphone number 1, please.
Cooks Jam, Cookby Rosette and Casimir of the Kalos de Schwabmuk. I just wanted to do a friendly amendment as well to the first, therefore be it resolved. And I just shared it with the resolutions.
So apologies, but we are working on the other proposed amendment to TBR 1, so it's going to get confusing if we're doing 2 amendments on the same section, so if you can just bear with us, just give us 1 second. Just makes it simpler, otherwise it gets a bit tricky. Thank you. Give me a nod when we're good with the proposed amendment. So we're just confirming.
I think we're good on 1.
Okay, we're good on, therefore be resolved, number 1. So if you look up on the screen, it's in purple. I would read, recognizing such denialism as equated to a hate crime against Indigenous peoples. It would scratch as hate speech. Mover, are you okay with that? Yes, seconder is good with that. Thank you. Back to microphone number 1.
Excellent, Cooks Jam for that. Just wanted to, acknowledge and thank Chief David Muniz as well as Chief Sheldon Kent for moving and seconding that resolution. And just have some amendments for the first, therefore be it resolved, and to include, so going from call upon the Government of Canada to amend Bill C-9, so that's an act to amend the criminal code, hate propaganda, hate crime, and access to religious and cultural places, or failing that, to introduce and adopt standalone legislation to criminalize the public condoning, denial, justification, or minimization of the Indian residential school, IRS system, and the unmarked graves of Indigenous children, recognizing such denialism as hate speech against Indigenous people. And I did provide a screenshot of that said wording to the resolutions table, so they're just inputting that. So it's in complete alignment with the First Amendment. But I just wanted to add a few things to that, if I could. And, you know, the Standing Committee on Justice is currently reviewing a bill to amend the criminal code to include reference to hate propaganda and hate crime. Yet in the contravention of Canada's obligations under the United Nations Declaration Act, this bill contains no reference to First Nations people, despite our people facing such a rise in anti-Indigenous rhetoric, violence, hate, but also residential school denialism. And we can see it not only in BC, but right across. In BC, we witnessed the creation of a new political party, the One BC, whose central focus is to spread division, hate, and anti-Indigenous rhetoric against Indigenous people. Just yesterday, this party premiered the documentary paid by the BC taxpayers in a provincial legislature, denying the impact of residential schools. Canada must take action to ensure that this racist rhetoric doesn't spread or go unchallenged. This is extremely important. And amending the Bill C-9 also represents an opportunity to include these calls for immediate effect, and through support a new and independent bill to be introduced. We fear that the failing to amend this existing bill will introduce significant delays, allowing these amendments and allowing those sentiments to spread. So chiefs in BC, you know, we met at the BC AFN AGM in October and unanimously consent and standing in applause passed a resolution calling for these amendments to C9. So that's why we're also asking here at the AFM. We're asking the mover and the seconder of this resolution to consider accepting our friendly amendment to ensure that this call is reflected in Bill C9, which is currently under discussion. Just wanted to further add is, you know, the historical and ongoing harm. Denying or minimizing the impact of the Indian residential school system is not only a direct attack on the lived experiences of survivors and their families, but it also perpetuates an ongoing system of harm and trauma. The recognition of residential school denialism as hate speech aligns with international human rights standards, including Canada's obligations under the UN Declaration on the Rights of Indigenous Peoples under it. So to prevent and prohibit actions that contribute to the denial of Indigenous peoples' rights or that perpetuate stereotypes and false narratives about their history. So by criminalizing residential school denialism, Canada would be taking a step toward fulfilling its international human rights obligations and providing greater protection for Indigenous peoples. Cooksham.
Thank you, Cookby. For the proposed amendment. Also, just a reminder, we did get a new seconder, Chief Kelsey Jacko. Both mover and seconder are comfortable with that. I'll just read it in for the record. So that would be under, therefore, be resolved number 1. I'll read the first sentence. It reads, call upon the Government of Canada to amend Bill C-9, an act to amend the criminal code, hate propaganda, hate crime, and access to religious or cultural places, or failing that, to introduce and adopt standalone legislation to criminalize, and then it continues on. So that's the proposed amendment, agreed to by the seconder and the mover as well. I don't see any more speakers. I'm just going to check online. Nothing online as well. I don't sense that there's any opposition, but I want to clarify before we go to a vote. Is there any opposition to the resolution? Any opposition? Last call. I'm going to look online as well. No opposition online, none in the room. Therefore, I will declare that the resolution has been adopted and is carried by consensus. So thank you. Miigwech. So we will now go to the next two resolutions. Again, we're going to do these sort of in a new way. We're going to go through the two resolutions and then open up the vote, sort of a modified basket or a bundle of resolutions. So the two resolutions that we are going to are draft resolutions 23 and 24. So if I can have Encore, please put up draft resolution number 23 up on the screen. There it is. So this is draft resolution 23, 2025. It is moved by Chief Zachary Whitecap. Can I confirm that Chief Whitecap is in the room? Either physically in the room or virtually. Just hit the raise hand function if you're online. I don't see Chief Zachary Whitecap. Chief Whitecap might have just stepped out into the hall. Otherwise, I'll look for another mover. Seconder is Chief Edwin Ananis from Beardies and Okomasis First Nation. Chief Ananis, are you here in the room? Chief Ananis, are you here in the room or virtually? If not, I will be asking for another mover and a seconder. This is draft resolution. It is in your packages. It's draft resolution 23. I realize we're not following necessarily the order that they're numbered, and that will be the case throughout this assembly. So they may not have been here prepared to move and second at this time. I know, Chiefs, I am asking for a mover and a seconder. You might need some time to see the content of the resolution if you haven't reviewed it yet. So what I will do is I'll go ahead and read the resolution, and then again I will make that call for a mover and seconder. If you are willing, please approach the microphone. If we don't have a mover and seconder, we will bring it forward later in this assembly. So the resolution, sorry, Encore, can you go back to the title again? It is titled National Provincial All-Inclusive First Nations Survivors Day. And we'll scroll down to therefore be it resolved that the First Nations in Assembly 1 support the Federation of Sovereign Indigenous Nations, FSIN, in calling on the Government of Saskatchewan to establish June 30th as an annual provincial all-inclusive First Nations Survivors Day, dedicated to honoring the strength, healing, and resilience of all First Nations survivors. 2, direct the Assembly of First Nations, AFN, to urge the Government of Canada to designate June 30th as a National First Nations Survivors Day to be recognized and observed annually as a federal statutory holiday in honor of all survivors of colonial and systemic injustices across Turtle Island. So that is the resolution. I was asking for a mover and seconder. Chief Ananas is on his way. Okay, I know Chief Ananas is on his way, but we do have microphone number 2, please.
My hustle halt. Ilvika Dan Wilson, Okanagan Indian Band, Vernon, BC. I'd like to move this resolution. My mom, Eleanor Eli, is a residential school survivor. Libna.
I was told Chief Ananas was on his way. Is Chief Ananas in the room? Thank you. So the seconder is here. I just wanted to confirm that the mover and seconder are here. I've now read the resolution into the record. Mover and seconder, it's not required, but if you wish to speak to the resolution, you have up to 4 minutes. Mover, I know you've made your statement very clear, and that you are moving it, so if it's not required to speak to it. Seconder, if you wish to speak to the resolution, it's not required. You're good. Thank you. So, Chief Ananas is here. They're both good. The floor is open. Floor is open. Any discussion? Very straightforward, self-explanatory support resolution. I don't see anybody raising their hands online, nobody approaching the microphone. So that's a good sign. I won't, so this is where it gets a bit tricky. I'm not going to call for consensus on this one because we actually brought the two together for a bundle or a basket vote. So I'm going to go to the next resolution. No more discussion on that one. Next resolution. Encore, if I can have you put it up on the screen, please. So this would be draft resolution number 24. Draft resolution 24, while we wait to have it put up on the screen, is titled Support for a National Day for Indigenous Child Removal Survivors by the Government of Canada. It's up on the screen. It is moved by Cookpee Christian Splatson. Cookpee Splatson, are you in the room? Yes, thank you. It is seconded by proxy Troy Macbeth, who is also in the room. Thank you. So I will read the resolution. Again, it's in your packages. Draft Resolution 24. We'll go down to therefore be it resolved. Therefore be it resolved that the First Nations in Assembly, 1, acknowledge that this resolution is brought forward by Cookpee Chief Michael Christian of Splatson First Nation, a 60 Scoop survivor himself who carries the sacred motion forward on behalf of all survivors, the children taken through these colonial child removal systems, the families who still carry on that loss, and the generations who continue to feel the deep intergenerational impacts of these removals. As a 60 Scoop survivor who spent 11 years of his youth in government institutional foster system, Cookpee Chief Michael Christian brings a deeply personal understanding of the intergenerational impacts of child, and if I can get you to scroll down, child removal, which continues to fuel his lifelong commitment to cultural reclamation, healing, and the revitalization of his community. This resolution is also brought forward by Chief Pamela Robertson of Boston Bar First Nation, who stands in strong support of this sacred call for national recognition. Chief Robertson's leadership reflects the collective voice of many families and nations who continue to carry the lived impacts of child removal across generations and who are walking the path of healing, belonging, and cultural restoration for all survivors. 2, acknowledge that this resolution is also grounded in the lived experience and advocacy of Troy Macbeth Abromatis, a 60 Scoop survivor and proud member of the Nlakpooks Nation, who, after being separated from his family and community for more than 30 years, returned home and dedicated his skills to support the rebuilding of his nation, including his service on the Lytton First Nation Economic Development Board following the devastation of the 2021 wildfires. In recognition of his quiet commitment to serve in a good way, Troy was honored by his family in 2023 through a sacred blanket ceremony and given the ancestral name Leximkan, symbolizing his full return to kinship, belonging, and identity. Before her passing, Troy's mother shared one final wish: that survivors be honored nationally, not only in name, but through sacred ceremony, so that all who were taken may one day be fully welcomed home through Troy's ongoing personal advocacy and leadership. Formal provincial proclamations have already been secured, recognizing June 30 as a day to honor survivors of Indigenous child removal systems, including the 60 Scoop, Millennium Scoop, foster care, and birth alerts in the provinces of British Columbia, Nova Scotia, and New Brunswick. 3, call upon Canada to acknowledge and honor the survivors' families and nations whose strength, courage, and sacred journeys have carried forward this profound work, and to recognize the growing circle of support that already exists across this country. This includes formal proclamations issued by the provinces of British Columbia, Nova Scotia, and New Brunswick, who have designated June 30 as a day to honor survivors of the 60 Scoop, Millennium Scoop, foster care, and birth alerts, and to bear witness to those returning home after years of decades of separation. Canada is called upon to recognize this growing movement as an expression of national readiness to address both historical and ongoing child removal systems, and to stand with First Nations in ceremony, healing, and belonging. 4, call upon Canada to formally establish the National Day of Recognition for Indigenous Child Removal Survivors, to be known in ceremony as National Blanket Ceremony Day, Indigenous Survivors, as a federally recognized day of ceremony, healing, and sacred commemoration, to be observed annually on June 30th. Further, call upon Canada to work in full partnership with survivors, elders, and First Nations leadership to advance and enact federal legislation to enshrine this day in Canadian law, ensuring that survivors are honored not only in name but through sacred ceremony, belonging, and restoration of family, community, and nationhood. 5, call upon Canada to provide dedicated and sustained funding to support survivors' families and communities and First Nations in the full development, ceremonial implementation, and public education necessary for the National Day of Recognition for Indigenous Child Removal Survivors, National Blanket Ceremony Day, Indigenous Survivors, to be fully established and upheld across the country. This work shall be held in full partnership with First Nations leadership and guided by Indigenous laws, teachings, and ceremonies, including the Sacred Blanket Ceremony, ensuring that every survivor is seen, honored, and welcomed home in a sacred way that restores dignity, belonging, and intergenerational healing. So that is the resolution before you. A lot of detail in there and justifying the purpose of the resolution, but there is an opportunity. It's not required, but if the mover and seconder wish to speak to it, there is that opportunity. So we will go to microphone number 1. You do have up to 4 minutes. You don't have to take it all, but I'll give you a friendly reminder as we're getting close. Microphone 1.
I'm a politician. I'll take anything I can get. Mr. Chair, I want to acknowledge our presence here on the Algonquin and Anishinaabe lands. Yeah, this is really important, most specifically from a family perspective. All 10 siblings in my family were removed back in the 60s, the late 60s, and it's affected more. And I think, intergenerationally, we've got the residential schools, and then ultimately we've got the 60 scoops and millennial scoop, and on it goes, right? And it's got to stop. Like I am one of the directors for the National 60 Scoop Healing Foundation of Canada, and we're really behind this resolution and getting this day established for throughout the country, throughout Turtle Island. And the other thing is I'm chair for our STEMAML services. That's our Child and Family Services. So as a cookbee, you're elected into that position. So we make decisions based on our own culture and language and the for our own children. So we've been around. So like one of our other resolutions today is regarding that. So I'll be back up here talking to that. But as far as this resolution, and ultimately Troy will be speaking to his experience, and it is to honor our family, our mother, our aunts, uncles, my siblings as well, Linda, Brenda, Constance, Carl, me. We had a brother named Adelard, Ronald, Wayne, Thelma, and Dorothy. So this has kind of fragmented our entire family, not just the siblings portion of it. And we're going through life, more or less trying to reestablish those connections if possible. Because like a lot of those relatives are gone now. Like there's no possibility of connection. Like our mother was the one that kept us in touch with all of those relations all over the place. Like we have Sioux blood, we have family all over the province pretty much, and a lot of that was lost. Because I was actually going, when we were scooped, we were put into a family in a town called Armstrong, and we were going to school with cousins, and we didn't know each other. And then the only time we really found out who each other was is when we went back to the community, and you run into these people and you're saying, well, what are you doing here, kind of thing. But anyways, I just wanted to kind of share a bit of a personal perspective on this resolution, And, you know, Cook's Jam, you know, for listening, and Cook's Jam for the chiefs and the elders and the matriarchs and the panel up there, and like everyone. So I just want to ensure that that feeling was made present, and definitely looking forward to seeing this resolution getting passed, and that actual day, that day being established, and the celebration associated with it as well. So yeah, I'm watching the clock, so I know I have 6 seconds, and 3, 2, 1. So Cook's Jam.
Rich, thank you. Seconder at microphone number 1.
My name is Troy Macbeth Abramidis. I'm a member of Lytton First Nation, and I'm Chief Proxy for Chief Pamela from Boston Bar. I'd like to begin by acknowledging the chiefs, elders, matriarchs, knowledge holders, and sharers, leaders, and survivors in a good way, and also I'd like to acknowledge the host nation, host territory upon which we're gathered today, so thank you very much. I'd also like to thank my chief and council from Lytton First Nation, my family, acknowledge my adopted parents, Vitas and Teresa Abramidis, for raising me in a good way and helping me to return home to community. My Drynok family and the Nipmuc Indian Band for acknowledging me as family, honoring me with the blanket ceremony and giving me the ancestral name Lehimkin Drynok. I'd like to also thank Elder Charlotte Mearns from the Musqueam Indian Band, who's been a strong supporter of my journey. I'd like to thank Cookme Michael Christensen from Splagine First Nation, Chief Pamela Robertson, who couldn't be here, and I'm here in her stead. I'd like to thank her very much from the bottom of my heart. I'd like to thank Solomon Reese from the Key First Nation and his mother Sharon Reese Jinkerson Brass, who's also a 60 Scoop survivor and who supported me on my journey. I'd like to thank James, Harry, and All Nations Outreach for their support. The National 60 Scoop Healing Foundation, who I serve as treasurer on, I'd like to thank them as well for all of their support. And I'd like to thank all of the chiefs and proxies here today who are considering voting for this incredibly important resolution. I stand here today as a 60 Scoop survivor and member of the Antsleklaatmuk Nation. I'm a member of Lytton First Nation, and it took me more than 30 years to return home. And when I first returned home, I didn't know what it meant to return home in a good way. I didn't know about ceremony, I didn't know about protocol, and I didn't know about my family or their history or their origins. My mother was also a survivor of the 60 Scoop as well, and unfortunately, she passed away last year, and she passed away the day after Mother's Day. And one of her last wishes was for this day to be considered by all of you in this resolution, so that there can be a day of healing and a day of unity and an opportunity for 60 Scoop survivors, Millennium Scoop survivors, Birth Alert survivors, and the overrepresentation of children in foster care to be acknowledged. I also had the privilege of meeting Dr. Cindy Blackstock at the Assembly of First Nations annual general meeting, and after a 1-hour conversation with her, I garnered her support as well for this amazing resolution that you're considering here today. On behalf of my family and on behalf of my community and on behalf of 60 Scoop survivors all across not just the nation of Canada but all across the world, I thank you from the bottom of my heart for your consideration for a National Day of Support and Healing for 60 Scoop survivors all over the world. So thank you very much for the opportunity to speak to all of you, and I hope that you'll vote favorably with regards to this resolution. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Miigwech. Microphone number 1.
Microphone could be Roseanne Casmer West at the Commons de Schwapmuk. I fully support this year resolution and, stand with all the Kukukbis. But I'm going to offer my time to Dave Manuel.
Dave Manuel Squest, the Commons de Swapnik. I'm one of the Kamipalas, and I'm also a 60 Scoop survivor myself. And I'm really glad that we're actually talking about this at the national level. This is part of our healing journey. As a nation, as nations across Canada, by doing this work and this resolution, I hope it does get passed, because for myself, I came back into the community when I was 17, but I struggled and I left, and I came back when I was 29 after I got some education and became a social worker. And I haven't stopped since 1993 in working in my community. And I'm serving my 3rd term on council for the Kamloops. And when I say this, it's all about healing. This is an opportunity for us to be able to heal as a country, as nations across our country, but also as families and also as individuals. By supporting this resolution, it's going to help, and it's going to set a rippling effect across Turtle Island in a good way. I really hope that we continue doing this work and keep standing up our survivors, not just for residential school, but also the 60 scoops. The 60 scoop is the next part of the evolution of healing for us as people. So I just want to say Cooks Jam for considering this resolution. I'm really proud to stand here and witness this vote, because I really believe that this is part of our healing process as First Nations across this country. Cooks Jam.
Thank you. Negrech, to the movers and seconders and the speakers to the resolution. So I don't see any opposition. What I would have done is asked if there was any opposition and then potentially deferred the electronic vote. But in this case, we have 2 resolutions that we are bringing together in one bundle for the electronic voting. So we will now, I don't see any questions online, nothing else in the room. We'll now go to question. And Encore, if you can open the polls, please. If you can please open the polls. Delegates, chiefs, and proxy representatives, you'll now get an email. If you don't get an email, you can use the same email from earlier this morning. A reminder, the way the voting works is you have your personal, it's a private 6-digit number or a 6-digit code, and you use the same code throughout today. Votes are coming in, so you've obviously gotten your emails. We are voting on 2 resolutions. Of course, resolutions are Draft Resolution 23 and Draft Resolution 24. So voting is open. Check your devices, check your email, click on the link, use your 6-digit private code. Once you do that, by the way, you're not able to vote again. So you're out of luck if you're trying to vote twice. It doesn't work that way. Also a reminder, all voting is encrypted, and it is not public. It is encrypted and will be kept for 30 days at the Assembly of First Nations, but it is fully encrypted. Votes are coming in. Just monitoring our screen here. If we can constantly update for me here, please. But the votes are coming in. Reminder, those online and those here in the room to open your emails, and the polls are open. We'll give it another minute or so. So in this case, you're not only voting on one resolution, but there are 2 resolutions. Anybody in the room having any technical challenges? We do have staff available up here. Thank you. Staff with the, I think they're sort of a neon-colored lanyard. So we have one chief with a hand raised up closer to the front. There's staff coming. Thank you. Anybody else? Over to my left, your right, near the front, we have staff coming. A reminder, we do have staff, but if you have any issues, we also have a room where you can go and we can help facilitate some of the voting if there is an issue. Did I see any other hands raised? Did I see one in the middle here? No, we're good. If you have any issues online, there is a number in the chat box and an email address. So that's in the chat box, and you can just send them a quick email or call that toll-free number, and staff are available to help you out. Are we good? Anybody else have any? Chief Batiste, are you good? Oh, no, not yet. Are you good? Okay. Looks like we're okay. Looking around the room. Any more issues? Okay, I'll give you a sec. We're trying to resolve something. I really appreciate the staff being available to help out and assist. We want to make sure everybody has that opportunity to vote. Miigwech kedunawa gaza pandemic eskam kenwes nawa jan yesege unga wetu jgadek always ga uskmatch jgadegeun. And we appreciate your support, your patience when we try something new. It's been several assemblies we've been doing this, and it actually has created more efficiencies and an accurate count of the voting. Plus, it's the same for those here in the room, also those joining virtually. Are we good? Looks like we're good. Anybody else? Oh, one more. I'm just checking online as well. I see there's one more I'm just going to wait on. Okay. Again, this is sort of the first time doing this particular type of bundle or basket, I will say, sort of a modified from the last time. Thank you, we're good. Encore, if you can close the polls, please. If you can close the polls, and if you can give me the results on my screen up here, and then also put it up on the screen. So, starting off with draft resolution number 23. So, draft resolution number 23, if I can have it, put it up on the screen, please. Resolution is carried with 97%. The vote numbers are up on the screen. So, resolution is carried. Thank you. Draft resolution number 24. I have it up on my screen. If I can have it up on the main screen as well. Resolution is carried with 97% in favor. So, both resolutions are carried. So thank you. Miigwech. So next resolution we're going to start a group of health resolutions. So this is draft resolution number 2. In your packages, draft resolution number 2. If I can have it up on the screen, please. Draft resolution number 2 is titled Development of a National First Nations-led HIV Prevention Strategy. It is moved by Chief Alex Sunny Batiste, who is here, seconded by Chief Jennifer Constant. Chief Constant, are you in the room? Either here physically in the room or virtually. If you're virtually, oh, thank you, you are online. So we do have the mover and seconder here present in the room. So the resolution reads, if I can have Encore scroll down. Resolution reads, therefore be it resolved that the First Nations in Assembly, 1, direct the Assembly of First Nations, AFN, to urge Indigenous Services Canada, Health Canada, and the Public Health Agency of Canada to immediately increase funding for human immunodeficiency virus, HIV, prevention, testing, treatment, and community-led education in First Nations with a specific focus on remote and rural communities. 2, direct the AFN to support the development and dissemination of a national First Nations-led HIV prevention strategy rooted in cultural safety, which builds on the outstanding work already being done by regional health service providers. A national First Nations-led HIV prevention strategy would include targeted outreach, stigma reduction campaigns, and enhanced service delivery capacity in high-risk regions. 3, direct the AFN Secretariat to work with regional health authorities, First Nation organizations, and public health networks to identify gaps and advocate for scalable models of care, such as mobile outreach, telemedicine prescribing, and community-based distribution of HIV prevention, treatment, and harm reduction tools. So that's the resolution. I'm going to ask the mover if you wish to speak to it. Microphone number 1, up to 4 minutes.
Chief Alex Sonny Batiste from Matasan First Nation. Yeah, I'm pushing this motion and hoping to get the support of it. It's just because Canada's HIV epidemic is worsening and Indigenous people continue to bear the disappropriate burden. One that is too often overlooked in national public health planning and decision-making. Across many First Nation communities, HIV acquisition rates remain comparable to levels seen in countries where HIV is considered endemic. This reflects long-standing systemic equities, gaps in access, and policies that fail to meet the needs of Indigenous people. In rural and northern remote regions, HIV prevention, treatment, and specialized care services remain severely lacking. Unlimited capacity, workforce shortages, and geographic barriers make it difficult for many to access the support they urgently need. The opioid crisis, which continues to cripple our communities, is also driving the rise in HIV, AIDS, and other bloodborne infections. The intersections of substance abuse, trauma, inaccurate harm reduction services, and delayed government action further intensifies the risk faced for our Aboriginal peoples. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, mover. Microphone number 1. Seconder is Chief Jennifer Constant, who is joining us virtually. Chief Constant, go ahead.
Good morning, everyone. Just to further Chief Sonny's comments, HIV remains a significant stigma in many First Nation communities. This stigma prevents individuals from seeking testing, care, and treatment, creating additional barriers to early intervention and prevention. As we mark Indigenous AIDS Awareness Week, we recognize this moment as an urgent call for Indigenous leadership in shaping solutions that will improve health outcomes for our people. Community-driven responses are essential to addressing service gaps, reducing stigma, and ensuring culturally safe and equitable care. Now more than ever, meaningful change requires listening to Indigenous voices and supporting the solutions Indigenous communities are ready to lead. We call upon the Assembly of First Nation to prioritize this concerning issue and to advocate for better, equitable First Nation health services to address this matter. Miigwech.
Miigwech. Chief Jennifer Constant, seconder of this resolution. So I'm going to open it up. Microphone number 2.
Anin Bojo, Najaway Makwakwe, Indishnikaz, Wabsushidodem, Chichakdodem, Scugog, Minising Donjaba. My name is Kelly LaRocca. I serve as the chief at Scugog Island First Nation, or the Mississaugas of Scugog Island First Nation. I just wanted to ask, say thank you, Miigwech, to the mover and seconder, and just please ask the Assembly to vote in favor for this resolution on HIV/AIDS. I understand through research that heterosexual Indigenous women are the fastest growing demographic, and numbers of positive infections are skyrocketing particularly in women. Indigenous women, and in Manitoba and Northern Ontario especially, it's quite prevalent. So I hope that we can support a strategy towards this. Miigwech.
Miigwech, thank you. So I do hear speakers in favor of the resolution. Microphone number 1.
Masiti Tletigetyuan, Dwayne Gastano Kwan, the proxy for Tesanclica Council. I'm also the chair of the AFN Two-Spirit Council. We discussed this resolution yesterday at our meeting, and we're in full support of it. I've got that so many of our Two-Spirit people are disproportionately affected by HIV/AIDS. I also got to remember my Two-Spirit sister from British Columbia, Alex Archie, who was one of the ones who passed because of this. And I also want to acknowledge all of our Indigenous brothers and sisters, our Two-Spirit brothers and sisters who we've lost to this horrible disease. So, Miigwech.
Thank you, Miigwech. I don't see any more speakers here in the room, and I'm looking online, nothing online as well. So with that, before I call for an electronic vote on this resolution, I am going to find out if we have consensus, and if there is no opposition, there's no need to vote, and it'll be deemed carried by consensus. So I am going to look around the room and also online. Resolution is before you. Is there any opposition to the resolution? Any opposition? Third call, any opposition in the room? I'm also checking virtually. I see none. So the resolution is before you. Therefore, declare that the resolution is carried and has been adopted by consensus. So thank you. Miigwech. Just looking at the time, hopefully we can deal with one, maybe two more resolutions and wrap up for lunchtime for this morning's session. Draft resolution number 4. We'll go to draft resolution number 4 in your packages, also available electronically. It's up on the screen. So this is draft resolution number 4. It is titled Advancing the Rights and Well-Being of First Nations Persons with Disabilities. It is moved by Chief Dan Wilson, who I know is here. Can I confirm Dan Wilson? Oh, yes, thank you. Seconded by Chief Dalton Silver. Chief Dalton Silver, are you in the room? Chief Dalton Silver, are you in the room, either physically or virtually? If you can raise your hand on Zoom. If not, I will be calling for another seconder. If you are willing to second, I'll get you to approach the microphone and just give me an indication that you will be willing to second. So I see someone approaching. Just want to confirm. Microphone number 1, there is a race. Just state your name and First Nation for the record.
Yadikshin 1-1, Sue Sterling Burr, Lornicla Indian Band proxy.
Great, thank you very much. So we do have a mover and seconder. Encore, if you can scroll down, and I'll read the operative clause of the resolution. It reads, therefore be it resolved that the First Nations and Assembly, 1, call upon the federal government to work with the Assembly of First Nations, AFN, to align with recommendations of the AFN Shadow Report to the United Nations Convention on the Rights of Persons with Disabilities, CRPD, to advance the rights, inclusion, and well-being of First Nations persons with disabilities in all aspects of community and national life. 2, direct the AFN to leverage the AFN Shadow Report to the CRPD to hold Canada to account for decades of neglect and amplify advocacy efforts on raising awareness and promoting understanding of disability rights within First Nations communities, and to challenge ongoing stigma, discrimination, and ableism. 3, call upon the federal government, provincial and territorial governments, and relevant agencies to engage in respectful partnership with First Nation governments, organizations, and persons with disabilities to jointly develop policies, programs, and funding that address the unique needs, priorities of First Nations persons with disabilities. 4, call upon Indigenous Services Canada and other federal departments to support and fund a distinction-based approach to build First Nations capacity to navigate disability benefits and services in First Nations that will address repeated concerns where pan-Indigenous groups continue to be funded to carry out work on behalf of First Nations on disability benefits and services. 5, call upon the federal government to support funding to develop a national First Nations disability strategy guided by the voices and leadership of First Nations persons with disabilities, elders, and knowledge keepers, and grounded in the principles of the United Nations Declaration on the Rights of Indigenous Peoples and the CRPD. 6, call upon the federal government to fund and support the creation of accessible infrastructure, culturally safe services, and inclusive education and employment opportunities in First Nation communities, and sustain funding to ensure inclusive and equitable access. 7, direct the AFN to urgently increase advocacy efforts to secure funding and capacity to carry out ongoing research and data collection led by First Nations to better understand the experiences, needs, and barriers faced by First Nations persons with disabilities and to inform evidence-based policy and program development. 8, direct the AFN to work with regional organizations, disability advocates, and community leaders to monitor progress and report annually to First Nations and Assembly on actions taken and outcomes achieved. So that is the resolution before you. I will ask the mover and seconder if you wish to speak, not required, but microphone number 2, mover.
Woodhouse Holt, and Charlamikum Dan Wilson, Okanagan Indian Band. I'd like to acknowledge that I'm on the Algonquin territory, and I'd like to thank the Algonquins for allowing us to do business on their territory. I just want to make one amendment on number 8. I'd like to direct the AFN to work with regionally identified First Nation organizations to monitor progress and report annually to First Nations and Assembly on actions taken and outcomes achieved. The reason for that amendment is it's important that First Nations identify which groups that they want to represent them, and that based on the amendment that was made in the previous resolution earlier this morning by the Mohawks, I believe. So it's imperative that First Nations laws are paramount over colonial laws. So I just wanted to add that amendment. Yeah, also too, I'd like to point out the in the first whereas, the inherent title and rights of Indigenous people in Canada are recognized and affirmed by sections 25 and 35 of the Constitution Act 1982, which guarantees that the rights and freedoms of the Aboriginal peoples in Canada shall not be abrogated or derogated, and that the existing Aboriginal and treaty rights of the Aboriginal peoples of Canada are hereby recognized and affirmed. That's very important to us, the Okanagan. We are non-treaty, so we still hold the Crown to abide by the Royal Proclamation of 1763, which states that we are allies of the Crown, so we're on par with the Crown. That's always been our position. And the reason BC is named British Columbia is because of the Royal Proclamation of 1763. It came to BC when Governor Douglas planted the flag, British flag, in the 1800s. So that is very important to us. I wanted to point that out. And also with regards to people with disabilities, you know, we pride ourselves in our cultures of respecting our elders. Well, we need to respect our disabled ones as well, and we need to start getting the government to fund our peoples with disability and to build our capacity as well.
Thank you, Chief Wilson. Before we go to the amendment, I'm going to go to the seconder if you want to speak to the resolution. Microphone 1.
Yarek Shiri Schnuckschnucka in Squash Sue Sterling Burr, Tooth in Shisht, Joyaska Kin, Tooth in Tlakap Nation, Tooth Stalo Nation. Good morning, friends. My name is Sue Sterling Burr. I come from the Joyaska Reserve, which is located with Lornicla Indian Band in the interior in Tlakap Nation. My mother comes from the Stalo Nation, and I'd like to say welcome to my relatives here today. There are approximately 32% Indigenous peoples living with a diagnosed disability in Canada. I want to point out that that is a diagnosed disability. That means that our relatives have had the opportunity to go through a full assessment and meet with the doctors and have access to the specialists to be able to get that diagnosis. If we layer on top the trauma that we have experienced as Indigenous peoples here today because of colonization, then we can add on the multitude of mental health and emotional challenges that our people may be facing on top of disability. Our individuals, our Indigenous peoples living with disability, are one of the most at-risk individuals. We think of our relatives who are living or working within our communities and our reserves and the multitude of challenges that they're faced on a daily basis. They're faced with food insecurity, they're faced with poverty, they're faced with having access to attend their medical appointments, having access to therapies, having access to supports in home care. And our funding that we currently receive for individuals with disabilities on reserve might be 1 day of a home care nurse, when many of our individuals need 24-hour care. If we want to ensure that we have our family members at home with us on our communities, in our nations, we need to ensure that we ratify this BCR. We need to ensure that the AFN takes a stand and starts to really research and look at what does the data say about our Indigenous peoples living with disabilities on and off reserve in our provinces and territories. Creating a provincial and a federal plan, territorial plans of how are we going to support our individuals with disabilities in a more culturally inclusive, sensitive, and safe way. Cook's Jam.
Thank you. Before we open it up, we do have a proposed amendment. So Encore, if I can get you to scroll down to paragraph 8. So the amendment would be, and I'll read it out, direct the AFN to work with regionally identified First Nations organizations, disability advocates, etc. So that's the proposed amendment that came from the mover. Seconder, are you okay with that? Okay, very good. Microphone number 1.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Cheryl Kasmer, Chief of ACOM. Just a friendly amendment to the resolution, Mr. Chair, and I'm thinking that it might fit best on therefore be it resolved number 5. And I'd like to add that there be a specific, specific reference to including Indigenous women. Indigenous women have a high representation or high stats in terms of dealing with disabilities. Just to very quickly, 45% of those aged 40 to 54 and 44 of those aged 55 and older have disabilities. And we know the important role that women play in our communities as child givers, and in most instances also being the ones to bring in incomes to sometimes single family households. And so I think it's important that with this high statistic that they also be given a specific place to be able to provide any direction and feedback into what a national disability strategy would look like. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Miguch. So there is a proposed amendment, and I just want to make sure that if you can stand by, maybe one of our resolutions team can help out in the proposed amendment. I think it's fairly straightforward. It's just adding the one word, and I want to make sure we got it right here. So the proposed amendment would be under paragraph 5. It's up on the screen. It would say it would be guided by the voices and leadership of First Nations persons with disabilities, and then adding women, elders and knowledge keepers, etc. So that is the proposed amendment. Mover, are you okay with that? Mover's good. Seconder, thank you. So I don't see any more speakers, nothing, nobody online, no hands raised, nobody else in the room. Before I call for an electronic vote, I'd like to see if there's a consensus. So I'm going to ask, the resolution is before you. Is there any opposition to the resolution? Any opposition? We're hybrid, so I'm going to give it 3 calls just to accommodate those online. Sometimes it takes a while to find the right button. No opposition. So with that, we will declare that the resolution is carried. It's been adopted by consensus. So, miigwech, thank you. Just some quick announcements. Oh, yeah. You're going to do the Congress thing? I'll turn it over to Cedric for some quick announcements before we break, and then we'll come back at 1 o'clock.
Well, and Adam, you're a warrior for going through all that. Just a few announcements. First off, again, reminder, Circle of Trade just next door in Canada Hall 3. We also have a modification due to travel limitations. Our presentation by the President of the National Congress of American Indians is going to have to take place at 1 o'clock. So again, if you can be back for 1 o'clock for that presentation, as mentioned by National Chief. And a few chiefs have been coming up to us with the Prime Minister coming and the need maybe for a national perspective. There are certain special processes that are being recommended by chiefs. We'll allow you to discuss those in your caucus rooms, and again, as chairs, we will apply your rules that you give us. So we'll let you discuss and come back to us to see what process to better represent your voices during the Prime Minister's presentations. Other than that, we'll be back here at 1 o'clock, again, 1 o'clock for the President of the National Congress of American Indians. Have a great lunch.